ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Who ate the whole apple? What happened?
I don't know.
Allah ate it. Allah ate it.
Because he was too stupid.
Excuses.
Thousands. Who ate the apple? What happened?
All right. We are live, everyone. Welcome back to Reasoned Answers, your home for the
crackhead clown individuals.
Artemis joined as the opening music was playing there, and the camera is not being detected by my computer at the moment, but I will get that fixed. I'll get Artemis added to the stream here in a second. Get the full apologetics crew going. Of course, we do have Mary here as well.
She has some scary intellectual abilities to pour through massive amounts of sources and information, and is pretty brutal. If she weren't so busy doing other stuff, I think she would be wrecking Islam by herself.
Welcome, Mary. Today we're going to be talking about a difficult subject in a way, because we have to talk about fellow Christians. Of course, the regular audience is well aware. Mary and I have been speaking against the Muhammad mythism, the no-moery, if you prefer, for some time. In recent streams, we have not talked about any Christians, right? We've been talking about Robert Kerr, an atheist professor, you could say. He certainly does have a PhD. He certainly does publish papers, although they seem to be more or less self-published. They don't seem to be seen as credible by others in his field, in that they are never cited or almost never cited by others. But nonetheless, he is a relevant person in this field. And we haven't been going after Jay. We haven't been going after Mel.
Well, in the last one, it was addressing Mel, because he went on to Al-Fadi's channel and publicized false things. You guys need to stop doing that. And now Mel will not give up the AI. All the nomos are addicted to AI. Why? Because it gives them the answers that they want. Not accurate answers, not truthful answers, because they don't care about truth. AI is extremely agreeable. If it can't find what it wants for you most of the time, it will make things up. And when you are an intellectually lazy person who chooses things because they're emotionally appealing to you, why would you bother to check to see whether or not you're being lied to by AI? Whether or not AI is just like pooping something out to make you happy? Because again, the word lie for AI is untrue, because AI has no concept of what reality is. AI does not know that it is making things up. It doesn't have the concept. It has no concept. It doesn't have the concept of finding things in something versus creating something. It doesn't know the difference between these things because it has no mind. And lazy people go to this and try to justify it. And after all of this nonsense, where Mel fed AI hallucinations to Jay Smith, which Jay Smith repeated in front of millions of people. Jay Smith gave AI hallucinations to millions of people and false things to millions of people. would it with a person with 2 brain cells to rub together to keep warm be humiliated by that and not do it again? Would not embarrassment?
The thing is, he was humiliated, but then he still did it again anyway.
Yeah. Well, no, it's just us being mean, because Mel has called himself Jesus walking to Calvary, stumbling and falling, and compared us to one who would spit on him, Mel Jesus, rather than giving him a cloth to wipe his face. So Mel has a massive
he has made, and just, not everyone understands all these illusions that Mary is giving. So I'll read a post from Mel here in a second. As far as the AI, I'll explain that in a second. But as far as Mel referring to himself as Jesus, he has multiple times posted things where he quotes scripture, including the words of Jesus, and then explains himself as being in the position of Jesus. Now, when you go to scripture and you read, say, the story of David and Goliath, and you read this as how you should find your own Goliaths to fight, you're abusing scripture. But when you go to scripture, when you go to the Gospels and you say, this story about Jesus is about me, that's like 10 times worse than putting yourself in the position of an Old Testament hero. You are claiming that the God incarnate figure of the New Testament is you, which is beyond outrageous. I'm sorry, but this is beyond outrageous. And the AI lies, the personal attacks, and the blasphemy, yes, blasphemy of Mel makes it necessary to speak against him. I'm sorry for the Mel fans in the chat who are bothered by this and are like, oh, you're hurting our feelings. Oh, well, it needs to be done because this is completely and totally inappropriate. And we did have Levi before we started saying the title is because of how Mel uses AI in his research. Indeed, it is. Mel did it, but it isn't just Mel, right? It is a pattern of laziness. In Mel's case, he, relies on AI to generate quotes for him, which is pretty much the dumbest thing you could possibly do. It is reasonably okay at summarizing information. It's very rarely going to get a quote right just because of the way it works. And certainly you should never use anything, quote or otherwise, from it without checking your source. It is considered academic fraud to take a quote you find in another research paper and say that you are quoting the original source without actually going to the original source and verifying it. And, because one, you're not giving credit to the person who wrote the paper, who gave you the idea. But two, you are saying on your own authority, this is accurate, and you don't actually know that. And that is what Mel has done again. So previously he did had a bunch of fake quotes from the church fathers about how they called Jesus Muhammad. And now Mary will get into the details of today.
Even though he couldn't even get AI to fabricate what he actually wanted to fabricate, he got it to fabricate things that were slightly more reasonable, but they were still all fabricated.
So Mel published a video, I guess, was it yesterday, 2 days ago? I think it was 2 days ago at this point, with Lloyd DeYoung, taking a fresh look at the case for Muhammad in the Bible.
Well, this one is not one with Lloyd. You probably didn't watch it. I just pulled the transcript, but I had to actually listen to some of it.
Oh, well, I mean, he said it was going to be with Lloyd.
Well, I mean, they might be doing research together with AI. Perhaps they are both using AI.
Or I mean, I don't want to pull Lloyd into this if he's not actually involved. Perhaps Lloyd saw how crazy it was and was like, no, thank you. I don't know.
That's very possible too.
If he's not in the video, he has nothing to do with this, and
No, he's not. He has nothing to do with it.
I
as
don't
far
want
as
to
I
like
know.
imply that he has anything to do with it if he does.
And he did not comment saying, "Hey, I have contributed to this. I am so proud of it." So I would not put this on him. It just has the normal fingerprints of the normal kinds of stuff that that Mel does.
All right. So let me see if I can. I guess I'll make it smaller. So,
and by the way, he has no idea what he's talking about, because the Muhammad argument was first put up by either Pop or Oleg. I forget which one went first. I'm confusing their two arguments right now. And Kerr backed way off on it and reformulated a slightly more coherent way, but it's also still stupid. I destroyed it when we went through. No one who watched that last video with Kerr, where we went through Kerr's whole paper about from desire to praise, the pre-Islamic history of Muhammad, no one who watched that went away from that thinking that Kerr's statements are credible. We all know that Mel cannot read French. Mel cannot read any language but English. This is a French paper. It only exists in French. And after the last time where I found some of it that was you could highlight and translate, I don't think that they're actually, I couldn't re-find that one. So I went back and like I said, I can read French, but my French is not fantastic. So a lot of times I have to go and translate words, because I learned to read French just by reading French. And so I just picked up on it over time. So I have to type in words into translation whenever my vocabulary fails me. So I was unable to re-find it. And of course, there's no way that he has ever read what Kerr has written in any language except for English. And yet he's saying that he's going to present Kerr's argument here. He's actually going to lie about Kerr's argument. And at this point, I am saying very clearly that he lies, because he needs his lie to be true for the rest of his argument to work. So he just makes something up. So.
Yeah, I mean, I was willing to, throughout this, right, for those who paid attention, throughout this, Mary and I, especially me, I've been very careful to not say a lie. Like when it's come up and like, I've accidentally said lie or whatever, I said, no, that's not accurate. I don't know that. Lying requires intent. What I do know is that it's inaccurate. I can no longer see any way this could be anything other than intentional distortion of the information. I no longer see any way this could be an accident. So let's get into this post here. From Islamic Origins, I hope to record a video later today that will be a defense of the MHMD. They say it's Mahmed, but Muhammad argument.
Mahmed, I love it. He can't pronounce any of the letters except for the M and the first A. Mahmed, everyone.
That was first proposed by Robert Kerr, which Mary just said is inaccurate. Despite the impression to the contrary, I didn't come up with this. No one suggested you came up with it, Mel. What we suggested is that you are the one who brought it to Jay Smith, and that is certainly true. But regardless of who came up with it, that is completely and totally irrelevant, except, of course, Mel is going to argue it's not. It's the work of a philologist. And those who have tried to refute it are not trained in philology and are thus not qualified to debunk it, despite their widely high view of themselves. I don't call myself Jesus, Mel. I don't compare myself to Jesus. I am quite capable of error, but you actually have no idea what my training is, right? You have no idea what my academic background is. I don't go around asserting that you should believe me because of my qualifications. You know why? Because this is a logical fallacy, one. And two, this is a terrible, in my opinion, a terrible bias in academia in general, that very gatekeeping and being like, if you don't have the proper degree, you can't criticize me. And here we got Mel saying this, but Mel has no qualification either, as far as I know.
No, he's a
He's
school
never
teacher.
asserted that he has a relevant degree. So how can he judge the accuracy of this argument?
There doesn't even know another language.
Thousands of people with the same degree as Robert Kerr. None of them agree with him.
Yep.
Appealing to his degree is idiotic.
Yep. And Kerr is actually trying to save, rescue, dive in, revive Oleg and Pop's theory because it's so stupid and so bad that he has to do all of these crazy backflips and gymnastics to move the goalposts to try to make it less ridiculous. Less ridiculous. He has not addressed anything. He is a philologist and he has a degree in philology. He has a degree in linguistics, honey. You don't get degrees in philology. But
and again, I don't appeal to my academic training, right? And I have never, I may have mentioned it, I'm not sure, but I have generally never talked about my graduate classes that I took in multiple relevant fields to this discussion, because again, it's an appeal to authority. It is not relevant. I could have a PhD. I could have 20 PhDs and it wouldn't make me any more credible, right? You judge based on an argument, not based on what degree someone supposedly has. But if we want to play that game, Mel does not have the degree.
Nope.
And he does not understand Robert Kerr's argument or intentionally distorts it. So appealing to Kerr is not helping him at all. And he is the one, despite this post saying that it has nothing to do with him, he is the one, the only one. Robert Kerr never did this to go and say, the church fathers say that Muhammad is in the Bible. Or Mohammed is in the Bible, that they call Jesus Mohammed. Kerr has not done that. That all came from Mel. All the AI hallucinations he put forward were from him, not from Kerr.
Well, what Kerr did is say, well, he's called desirable, and in this passage was kind of applied to Jesus. But Mel is the one who made up all of the AI hallucinations to try to back that up.
So our Kitsune says that apparently Mel is on Lloyd's channel right now as we speak, talking about this. We'll see that later. I'll see if there's anything additional to respond to.
And we will add that if we need to. So anyway, this, and I would like to point out, he goes, as a result of the numerous sin apologists' admissions that they're concerned that the Muhammad.
Well, I was going to read the whole thing, Mary. I was going to read the whole thing. You get to respond to everything else. I get to respond to this first. So Deluxe Sofa says it's like the same, you don't know Arabic, you won't see how beautiful the Quran is argument. Indeed. It is a very Dawa argument. You don't know Arabic. You don't hold a PhD in Arabic. You're not qualified to speak about the Quran. Anyway, this impression that is somehow it got refuted is a misapprehension. What is a misapprehension exactly, Mel? You yourself backed away from it. I know you're back on it now.
You're back on it now.
You went on Jay's channel, apologized for the AI hallucinations you put forward, and claimed that Jay had misrepresented you and you didn't make the claim.
Yep. I never claimed it was a title. I'm not claiming it's a title. I'm claiming it's an epithet, just this thing that was said. I'm not saying it's a title. Yeah, you are. So why are you lying? Why do you need a lie to save face? It's just so pathetic.
Dude, he just called you trolls on his new post 23 minutes ago. I mean, he's been attacking me personally throughout this.
Yep. And he's a coward.
In fact, in this post that I'm reading right here, right? This isn't the new one, but so the impression that was somehow got refuted is a misapprehension. Those who attempted to refute it had strongly apologetic reasons for trying to debunk it. What does that mean, Mel? What is my strong apologetic reason for debunking it exactly?
Other than the fact that I believe that history is knowable and that normal historical processes are how we learn about the past, that we have a real past and we can find out generally true things about it. Your idea, you haven't studied go ahead and read the next part.
Yep. I don't know what my strong apologetic reason is exactly. This is just an excuse to dismiss something. Mel obviously has a strong, I'm not going to say apologetic, strong emotional reason. He has invested years of his life in this, right? Of course, he has a strong reason to believe a strong emotional reason to believe he's correct. And more importantly, I'm not studying the history of Islam from a historical critical standpoint. How dare you, Mel? How dare you? You have no idea what I have or have not done. I assure you, I actually know what the historical critical method is. I actually know how to apply that. And I most certainly have done that for Islam. You literally think that historical critical method means criticizing historians. That is idiotic. That is not what it means at all. You say because we're not criticizing the mainstream historical view, we're not doing historical critical work. That is moronic. Moronic. Historians do historical critical work. That is the historical method they use. Yes. Oh my gosh.
And that is the method that I use. Mel is so uneducated that he thinks that his knowledge of the word critical defines critical. He thinks that critical means criticism. He doesn't understand that criticism is in attacking. He knows so little of the English language that he doesn't know that critical means judging and weighing and examining things. He thinks that its historical critical method is just valid because it's valid, and that means you're just claiming that things didn't happen in history. What do you say about the critical method about, I don't know, Alexander the Great? The critical method about the church history, the critical method about the Pope's claims. He's in some sort of weird sect of his own. Like, what do you think about the critical of anything else? I am the confident in real history because he has such a delusion in his very, very small brain. He doesn't understand that his approach, there can be no history. There's no history 5 days ago. There's no history 20 years ago. There's no history 100 years ago. There is no history at all. This is an IQ 10 position.
So a couple quick comments from the audience. Son of Morning says, using AI is bad because it hallucinates. That's the line of reason they're using. Bro is crying hard. Indeed, right? That's not what I'm saying at all. Well, we haven't actually gotten into that part yet. That is true. AI does hallucinate, but that's not why it's bad. Why it's bad is I gave an example of quoting a human being or taking a quote from a human being and not looking it up and saying that was academic fraud. The problem isn't that he uses AI as a starting point for research or whatever. The problem is he just blindly repeats it and doesn't check his sources. Correct. Doesn't check the AI sources. And as we're going to see later, he ends up attributing a quote to an author that 100% completely disagrees with him, would call his ideas stupid, would call him a complete moron, and he's using AI to quote this person in support of him. We'll get to that in a bit. Which just leads to a restatement of the sin. Mary, do you and I think that Muhammad was a true prophet who received revelation from God, who was visited by the angel Gabriel and so on and so forth?
And by the way,
so
the
we're
50
not
plus
Muslims.
hours to attempt to debunk, we explore and evaluate truth, which is something that is entirely foreign to the mind of Mel, who thinks that what you do is you type some stuff into AI and then you present it and read it. And why would he need to do research? Why would he have to read anything? Why would he need to read Kerr's paper? He has never read Kerr's paper because it's not in a language he understands. And yet he's appealing to Kerr.
Yeah, so I will definitely see what
Oh
he
my
said
gosh.
on Lloyd's
Oh,
program,
it's gonna
and
get
I will
good.
respond further. Right, Mary and I will respond further as necessary. Right now, we're responding to what he said 2 days ago. Yeah, so we just restate the sin. Right, this is the line he's been using this line for like 4
Yep.
years.
And
Anytime
it's
anyone
untrue.
disagrees with anything, he'll say that they're just repeating the sin, and then he'll disagree with himself, change his position a week later, but he wasn't agreeing with the sin last week, and he's not agreeing with it now, even though that maybe what he's saying now is what I was saying last week. You know, it doesn't matter. Any critic,
Yep.
they are just Muslims in disguise. Hence why it has taken them 50 plus hours to attempt to debunk what should have taken only an hour if they were correct. Hey, Mel, my video debunking your idiotic claims about the church fathers is 14 minutes long. 14 minutes, you clown. 50 plus hours. My goodness. We don't even have 50 plus hours on everything we've said on the historical argument since
No.
Mary's debate.
Nope.
Let alone 50 hours on his idiotic claim about the church fathers, which is what was debunked, that is relevant to him.
Yep. All right.
And this is a very common tactic I see from atheists, for example. They'll just put out a claim, right? They'll say, Jesus wasn't a true figure, is a myth. And then you like provide evidence. And they're like, I said it in one sentence. How come it took you 10 minutes to reply to my one sentence if you're correct? You're just trying to say a lot of words.
Yep.
Yeah, when you put out stupidity, right? You can put out stupidity with zero effort whatsoever. Right? It takes 2 seconds to make a claim. To provide evidence takes some time, but it did not take us 50 plus hours to debunk you. Again, my video is 14 minutes. All right, sorry, I'm going through this too long. I'll speed it up. As a result of the numerous sin apologists, I am not a sin apologist. What the heck? Admission they are concerned about.
Again. What does he have to do? He has to make it look like anyone who isn't with him is really a secret Muslim. You're secret Muslim.
I guess that was my strong apologetic reasons, because I just believe in the sin so much. Because he said strong apologetic reasons. Now he says sin apologists. They're concerned with the MHMD argument will undermine the origins of Christianity. I never said that, you clown. I said it was disgusting. I said it was embarrassing. I said it undermines the church by showing that Christians put forth false arguments. It has nothing to do with my fear of the argument.
It makes you look like a liar and a fool. You are disrespectful of Christian history and treat it as a joke that you can manipulate to do whatever you want. That's the problem. You're treating Christian history, the scripture, as something that you can manipulate, falsify, and lie about. So yeah, I have a big problem with people lying about my book. You don't, because you are so involved in your delusions that you will make any lie to say it. What I believe in is that we need to be honest and true and use the same measure whenever we look at anything, and not just make up stuff and say that that's what we can do. If your standard is that you can make up anything you want when it comes to Islam and that should be okay, then you have no defense against people who use that for Christianity. You can't tell them that it's illegitimate when they do it to your book if you're doing it to whatever you don't like. You need to be true.
This is just sad. This is just sad. So Mel, it says he, I'm going to assume it's Mel. It could actually be Lloyd, because he also has a problem with Mary. But he's saying you wear a hijab, Mary.
No, I wear a turban because it's a joke. And also because, I have a loving family.
This is clearly intended to discredit you, right?
Yep.
This is clearly intended to say that you're a Muslim.
Yep. And again,
and this is just
notice
pathetic.
How dirty and filthy these people are. Filthy. Just filthy people. He calls himself Christ himself. Mel calls himself God all the time. He has callings from God. He makes promises to God. He keeps his promises to God. He has a special calling. He puts himself in the place of Jesus and smears everyone else as a Muslim. So.
Yeah. Okay. So why are they so afraid of historical truth? Not at all afraid of it. Are they
No,
not confident in
I am
his
angry that you are calling ancient Christians liars. You are
Mhm.
so built up in your own hallucination that whenever people from the past who are suffering under Islam, who some of these people have died because of Islam, you call them liars because your feelings about something are more important than actual Christian testimony.
Mhm. To criticize Mary's head covering is the strangest criticism by another Christian, since there's a clear tradition of head covering in Christianity too. Yeah, you know, I mean, sometimes Muslims will tell us that nuns wear a hijab, and by Mel's logic, they do, right? So this is just
Yep.
pathetic and disgusting.
Yep.
And he has no clue about anything if he actually thinks that head covering is something unique to Islam. Anyway, are they not confident in the history of Christianity? I am completely and totally confident in the history of Christianity. What I actually said is your methodology will allow you to conclude absolutely anything about absolutely
anyone,
anything, including the history
anytime
of
in
Christianity.
history, ever. There is no time in history, there is no event in history that you have to believe in if you take Mel's approach. There is no certainty in history, there's no knowledge in history. Mel can't even know where he lives with any confidence with his own methodology. Somebody
Yeah,
could
I
have
mean,
fabricated, if he owns a house, somebody could have like forged that. How do you know it's not a forgery? How do you know somebody didn't Photoshop it? How do you know that you really live there? How do you know that that's really your citizenship? Somebody could have made that up just to make up this Mel person. Like Mel can't even prove that.
Yeah, I know. I mean,
using
it could
his
be a grand
methodology.
conspiracy to undermine the truth of Islam or something.
Like, if you take Mel's approach, that's as much sense and logic and reason that he has. All right, are you ready to
hold on, Mary. I
jump
got to
into it?
finish
Yeah.
this. If
Oh,
you would stop interrupting me, we'd be
sorry.
done, you know? Or is it a version of Christian history that they are afraid to get exposed? No, I am not afraid of anything except you embarrassing the church. I can't resist exploring this because the truth is what matters to me most, not tribal
Absolutely does
affiliations.
not.
If you apply the same methodology to Christianity, you will leave Christianity. That is my actual point. If you assume that everything is some kind of grand conspiracy, soon you're going to be telling me that you can't prove Constantine didn't create Christianity, because you can do that. It's not responsible. It has nothing to do with actual thinking or actual history, but it is something you can do. And by your methodology, you're going to be out of Christianity if you actually apply the same method. Now, I don't necessarily think you will, but if you actually apply the same method, you will be out of Christianity. I'm tired of trying to please everyone and will only follow the truth where it leads. Sure. The attempt is to smear me was for that reason. What reason exactly? Because I'm afraid of Christian history. Give me a break, you fucking clown. So rather than running away from it, I will be next diving into that with Lloyd de Jong. So I guess what he's diving in is the Christian history, actually. And we'll see together what the Roadshow crew is so afraid of, i.e. the truth. So, okay, that actually makes more sense. I'm glad that we read this live here. He did edit this. He did change the wording slightly, so it might be that he clarified the wording here at the end. But I am glad we read this because now I know exactly why he's running to Lloyd, because Lloyd has some ideas about Martin Luther and John Calvin. And he thinks that they're like some kind of devilish monsters who took people out of Christianity or something. So that's probably the history that they're going to delve into together, which is completely and totally irrelevant to the actual historical foundations of Christianity. But I am not afraid of you, Mel. I am not remotely afraid of you. He definitely added, i.e. the truth on the end here that wasn't there originally. Maybe to his credit, that may be what he intended. It read as if we were afraid of him originally. I am not afraid of you, Mel. I will gladly have a conversation, a debate, whatever you want to have on any channel, anytime. You can, it can be on your channel. It can be pre-recorded so you can not air it if it's too embarrassing to you, whatever. I am not remotely afraid of you. I will debate you on Jay's channel with Jay as moderator. That is how little I am afraid of you.
Yep.
But you have blocked me. You blocked Mary. You blocked my email.
Yep. I will.
And then you whine and cry.
I will debate you on Jesus mythicism, taking the point of view of a mythicist, and you need to defeat me and I will use only your methods. So how about that? I will debate you on Victoria mythicism. Queen Victoria did not exist. I will debate you on who the heck else? The Roman Empire. I will debate you on whether or not it existed using your methods.
Arkitani says, to be fair, Martin Luther seemed like an absolute scumbag. I mean, fine. Martin Luther could be the worst person in the history of the world. It's totally irrelevant to the historical foundations of Christianity. I mean, I don't want to debate whether Martin Luther's a great guy or a terrible guy, whatever, because it's not relevant to me. Luther is not my prophet. He is not my savior. I don't follow Luther, right? It's totally irrelevant to me. And Luther himself would be the first person to say that, right? He would be like, I'm a terrible sinner. You shouldn't follow me. You should follow Jesus. Arkitani earlier said you're not a cook, so you don't know the difference between pizza and chocolate cake.
Yeah. But yeah, I will debate Victoria mythicism.
Mm-hmm. And Houston said Robert Spencer named his translation the Critical Quran. The name wasn't about the criticism. Indeed, the idea of the title, maybe people didn't realize this, right? But I'm quite confident without having to actually ask him, because Robert Spencer actually knows what being critical as a scholar means. He means that it's taking a objective approach, a non-faith-based approach to the Quran, putting the information out there, analyzing the facts. That's what being critical means from an academic standpoint. Mel thinks it means criticizing, which is not accurate. Now, sometimes being critical does lead to criticism or has the same conclusion as criticism, but they're not the same thing from an academic perspective. So that is the post from Mel there. He made all kinds of fake quotes about the church fathers.
Yep.
I spent an immense amount of time, right, tracking these down because they're very obscure works. Most of them aren't translated into English. It was not easy to find, most of them are translated, but the translations are very obscure because they're not important works. Yep. And none of the quotes were real. Well, I shouldn't say that. I think one of the quotes was real, but it had nothing to do with what Mel said it was about. None of the rest of the quotes were real. None of them. So here's the thing, right? The church fathers go to the Old Testament. They go to the scripture and they say like virtually everything in it is about Jesus. So it was highly plausible that someone could have said the description in Song of Solomon 5:16 was a description of Jesus. I could not find any church father who ever said that, actually. But they say it is about the church, because if you think about it, right, in
Christ
Song of Solomon, it's about broadly speaking, it's about a man and his bride to be. One of those figures will be seen as Christ. One of those figures is going to be seen as the church. So when they see that particular phrase there, they say, well, Christ is the head, right? The head, the mouth speaks, and the body listens. The people hear. The church hears. And they attribute that phrase to the church, not to Jesus.
Because of the Christ being the head of the church and we are the members, then what is altogether lovely is the body, which is the whole of the church and Christ together, and the church in imitation of Christ. That's how they almost all read it. Now, even if they had applied it to Jesus, well, they did apply the head. The golden head was applied to Jesus. Is there any place in which you would find a phrase golden head and people would go, why, that is Jesus, because that is what is said in place of Jesus? No. It's not a term that is not a title of Jesus. It never was. So even though you find places where people where the golden head is explicitly said to be Jesus, if you said, well, the words golden head were a messianic title, you would be officially an idiot because it was never used in that way. So let's
before we get into your presentation, there was one super chat which I'm going to take real quick. Son of Morning says, LMAO, Mel compared you guys to a crazy woman who just keeps showing up. Well, someone is like a crazy person who just keeps showing up, being debunked time and time again, admitting that he made errors and then just repeating them anyway. A super chat from Joshua Wooden.
Can you just imagine giving £100 and it's a sadaqah jariyah, meaning it carries on going even when you are gone? Just imagine being in your grave and getting the rewards. In your grave, you will not be able to come back to this video to donate. So why not donate now?
You got limited time. I'm surprised Mel hasn't used these little clips against me. But as you can see, the bot is working and has been fixed. I think I got everything fixed. There was a couple other things that actually were working as well that people didn't notice. But I think I got everything working again. Joshua says, Dar al-Harb, Mary Harb. Coincidence? She must be a Muslim.
Actually, it's not a coincidence because Dar al-Harb is the name for what? The House of War, right? And it just amused me the fact that I chose Harb because it's also a German name, and there are very few things that are both European and Middle Eastern last names, and the fact that meant Harb just cracked me up. That meant war cracked me up in Arabic, because what does that mean? The House of War. I'm in the House of War. I'm against Islam. It's war against Islam, number one. And number two, Muhammad specifically said, don't name your children Harb. And so I thought that was extra funny. So it is a 3-level joke.
Deluxe Sofa just asked Mel and Lloyd about a debate, and Mel said you guys should agree to disagree. That's very odd, because he's posting all over his community posts about how I'm a horrible monster, Mary's a horrible monster, but we should just agree to disagree. We are unfairly stalking him. We are unfairly criticizing him. But we're also terrified. We're so afraid of the truth. Whatever will we do? Challenge you to a public debate? No, I can't do a public debate. Let's just agree to disagree. Who is the coward?
Well, he's always been the coward. That's why he blocked me. So let's go ahead and jump into it. We are going to start once again with the picture that Mel believed might have secret knowledge in it, because Mel believes that a picture from the High Middle Ages could have convey secret knowledge about Islam's past faithfully that was not preserved in any writings. So this 13th century work might tell us, because of the directions of the people's gazes and the fact that they look kind of slanty-eyed and therefore Asian to him because it's Persian, is going to tell you secret things about history. This is the way Mel does history. That's why I said, using Mel's methods, you can say anything, because that's the most ridiculous and illegitimate thing that can ever be said. So, big question is, what is Mel's game? What was he making this video for? He wants to deceive you with the argument that if the root of Muhammad can represent a Hebrew word, it does represent the Hebrew word. So his entire time, everything he's writing here is to try to convince you that if Muhammad can be represented in the Arabic rasam, or the Mahmad, rather, the actual Hebrew word. The reason why I make fun of Mel is because he calls it Mahmed, which I don't even know what that is. Mahmad is the Hebrew singular, and Mel doesn't understand this either. And if it can be represented by those letters without vowel pointings, then it must be that. That's
So
the most ridiculous thing possible.
If we can find, and I haven't attempted to do this, but I guarantee I can do this quite easily. If we can find a language that has a word with the consonant ML, then Mel is not a real person.
Yeah, Mel's made up because there are other words. Miel, it means honey in Spanish. Therefore, Mel does not exist. Anytime that you see Mel, they're actually talking about honey. And this Mel person was made up. He is an AI creation of the Honey app, created to get you to download the Honey app. That's
yeah, to give you discounts on your products. It'll give you the best discount, except it won't. It'll give you whatever the preferential discount is that the company paid to promote.
Yeah. Anyway, so I just want to put in context a similar thing in English. So the English word coin can represent the French word for corner. And if you have the word coin in an English text, would you ever read it as corner instead of coin? Because in French, it's coin. I found, as I was walking down the street, I found a coin on the ground. Would you ever read that as corner? No, because it's an English text. You would
see, Mary, I always read all English texts as if they are written in Latin and German, right?
Right.
Or probably more accurately, French and German. Because those are the two primary influences on the English language. Or maybe I say, well, French comes from Latin, so I go back to Latin, whatever, whichever way. That is how I read all English texts. I'm like, okay, the author meant something in French. Yes, they did. Okay, what does this mean in French? I don't care what it means in English. What does it mean in French? I mean, this is just moronic.
Yes, it is moronic. It is moronic. If you want to say it is a borrowed word that just happens to be identical to a completely native word, you need a reason for claiming this. There we go. Mel means flour in her language. Really, Mel is just flour, baking flour. So there we go. He's not a person. So chair. Again, I'm not going to say the French because my French is like a punishment for anyone to listen to. But chair is the spelling of a word meaning flesh. Whoops, a flesh in French, not in English, obviously. The word chair is the spelling of word meaning flesh in French. So if I say something about chair, really, it's about Jesus, because he says that the bread is my flesh, and you have to eat of my flesh. And because he said flesh in reference to himself, that anytime you see the word chair in a book in Jane Austen, really, it means flesh, and it's talking about Jesus. Here we go. We've got Mel logic going here.
Again, I mean, that's actually closer connected than Song of Solomon is to Jesus, right? Or the Arabic MHMD is to Song of Solomon is to Jesus, right? It's actually a closer connection. But I did want to take this from, I'm guessing, Nathan. YouTube no longer shows your actual names. Sorry. English does have many French words, and that's true, right? Including actual borrowings. But they don't have two different meanings in French, or maybe occasionally the English could have a slightly different meaning than the French that it borrows, right? Because words can change meaning over time. But that's not at all what Mel is claiming. I mean, that might be what he's using, the words he's saying, but that's not at all what he's claiming, because, well, first of all, it's not like super common for Arabic to borrow words from Syriac. But even if it was, he's claiming that in this case, even though it has an Arabic meaning, right, even though it has a clearly defined Arabic meaning, we should ignore that meaning and go with the Syriac meaning, and which is exactly equivalent to what Mary's doing here, right? Where she's saying, well, the chair, those same letters in that same order occur in French, so it must be the French meaning.
Yep. So the word spelled as attend is pay attention, like if attendez-vous, etc. Which again, sorry, huge apologies. My French is like criminal, but it means pay attention versus be present. The word spelled main is actually hand. The word spelled pain is bread. The word spelled for is oven. So again, if I see pain, it's really not pain. It means bread. It's about Jesus again. So chair and pain in the same sentence. Well, you know that it's about Jesus's flesh being bread somehow.
I sat in the chair and it caused me pain. Oh my gosh, he's telling us some secret message about Jesus.
So keep in mind that these have the same origin, parent language, but different meanings in these different languages. In Northwest Semitic, the meaning is desirable. In Arabic and other languages, and actually modern South Arabian has just recently been able to be read by Al-Jalad. Really huge breakthrough. So it does look like the original meaning of this root was indeed praise. And we have really good evidence for that now. And only Northwest Semitic did change to desire for some reason. But if you are going to read a different definition, you need a reason to do so. You need a context in which this would make sense. You need evidence to read it as this different word.
And when an author is, so authors, right? Ancient authors were just as creative as we are today, right? They have the same intelligence. So they do sometimes play word games, but they also make it apparent when they're doing so, just like you do when you're playing a word game with English and you're using a word in a very funny way, not its actual definition. You're playing with the sounds of the word. It's apparent. It's not like some mystery that has to be solved. Nodi says, I remember reading a comment of an ex-Muslim under Mel's community post saying his arguments led him away from Islam. I'm not denying that is a possibility. I mean, there's tons of posts on atheist Jesus mythers posts to say that this led them out of Christianity. I severely doubt that is actually the case. Now, let me clarify. Was it the last straw that took them out of Islam? Possible. Right? Perhaps probable. I have no reason to believe the person's lying. However, was it what made them first start questioning Islam? Or were they 99% of the way out and then they heard this and they're like, all right, I'm done? I'm guessing it was probably the latter. And here's the risk, right? Even if it was their only reason for, I hope it's not their only reason for leaving Islam, because if it's their only reason for leaving, what happens when that gets debunked?
Yeah, what happens whenever they actually bother? They tell someone else, hey, I heard this thing, and the other person laughs at them, or the other person goes, I haven't heard that, and then looks it up and goes, well, that was a lie, and here's why. So if you are lying to people and tricking people to get them to leave Islam, that's not a good long-term strategy.
Carol says, le petit coin is a cute slang for a toilet. No, it's not. It's the pretty coin, right? That's what it looks like in English.
Yeah, you got to send it back into English. Now you have to make it be something else other than the little corner. Can't be the little corner. It has to be English now because we get to read whatever meaning we want into a word because it exists in another word. So Mel also does a second dishonest trick after trying to trick you into thinking that if these letters would be represented this way, it must have this meaning. The second very dishonest trick is that Mel doesn't even want that Hebrew meaning. He wants to lie to you and tell you that desirable thing was a word used in place of Messiah and was used as a stand-in for Messiah without ever giving any evidence for it. It can't just be, again, golden head was affirmed by the fathers to be a description of Christ in that passage, unlike desirable, which was never affirmed to be of Christ. Golden head was affirmed to be of Jesus, yet golden head found anywhere, or golden one, would never be understood to be Christ. It's not used for Christ. The word Mahmed appears nowhere in the Hebrew language outside of the biblical text. It's the only place it appears. And it is never used as a stand-in for Jesus in the biblical text. It's never used instead of him or as like...
Well, yeah, I mean, as we've discussed before, the vast majority of references are highly negative. They're not things people want to say are Jesus.
Yeah. And it's mostly about covetousness and lust and things like that for the most part. And I do not think that there is a reasonable possibility that Muhammad did not exist. I don't think it's a defensible position. What is possibly defensible is to say that we can't say that much about him. But there is
Delmetri says there's a possibility he, presumably meaning Muhammad, didn't exist. Well, there's a possibility that Mel doesn't exist.
Yeah, I mean, like that's about...
There's a possibility that Julius Caesar didn't exist. There's a possibility of anything, right? That is not the standard. That should never, ever be your standard, right? There's a possibility of whatever is not a valid argument. What we need to ask is it plausible? Or is it probable? Right. Yep. So there's three possibilities. Something a mere possibility with no evidence behind it. Something that, could be. There's a little bit of evidence, but not enough. That's something that's plausible. Or there's something that's probable, in which case it is what the evidence best fits. We can never say anything about history or anything about anything other than pure logic with 100% certainty. However, we can say that this is extremely probable. This is by far the best, what the evidence best fits, and the evidence best fits that Muhammad was a real, historical, false prophet who is largely responsible for the text of the Quran. Does that make me a Muslim? No, it doesn't. It doesn't come within a million miles.
I think if Stalin existed, that doesn't make me a communist.
Yeah, exactly. You're just a communist apologist, Mary, because you said Stalin exists.
Deluxe Sofa says there's a possibility of the French not existing. Folks, I'm starting to like this theory. All right, so the word Mahmed appears in Hebrew nowhere outside the biblical text. And it appears one time ever in the entire corpus of Aramaic from 500 BC to 1300 BC, or excuse me, 1300 AD. So this is 1800 years of Aramaic writings, 1800 years. Outside of the name Muhammad in the Islamic age, it appears one time, and then it's talking about inanimate objects in a Jewish writing, like things that you really like. It's not talking about any animate human being or even animal. For this to be something that Jesus is called, it needs to be a word that people are using. And not only should they be using it, they need to be using about Jesus. But they do not use this word with reference to Jesus ever. Ever. There's not one instance of that. So Mel has this massive cognitive dissonance because he doesn't even know in his own mind what meaning of this Mahmed that he wants. He wants it to be Jesus somehow, and he doesn't seem to care whether or not it means praise, desire, Messiah, chosen, whatever. He doesn't address it. He shows no evidence of it, And I don't think he has any clarity about this in his own mind. One question for him is, Alhamdulillah, how does Mel imagine that this is understood? It has the same root. Does Mel know that it has the same root? Of course he doesn't. He doesn't know anything about Arabic. Why would he learn about Arabic when he's doing historical criticism that relies on linguistic knowledge? And a third error that he makes, which is out of sheer ignorance, is that Muhammad is still grammatically a name in all of the early Islamic sources. It is not a title. It's not an adjective. It is a name. Grammatically, it must be a name. There is no...
We went over the...
Yeah, we went over this whenever we went over Kerr's paper. The level of gymnastics that you have to do to try to make it an adjective, and that's the only other alternative, is impossible. It is ridiculous. It is absurd. I am bringing up this coin again that talks about a dude whose dad's name was Muhammad, and he's writing at a time in which his dad must have been born around 635. So it is a dude's name, his dad's name when he mints this. It's a regular name.
Mary, oh no, you just proved the Da Vinci Code. It's the secret bloodline of Jesus. He's claiming that his father is a descendant of Jesus.
Something like that. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And something that Mel...
but before you go on, I wanted to say we did a whole show on Muhammad as a title. Kerr does not say, right? This is their grand source. Kerr's their best source. He admits it can't be a title. Correct. And yet you hear over and over again, Jay Smith, Mel, I'm sorry, even Robert Spencer saying that Muhammad was definitely a title. It wasn't a name.
And he doesn't say that. He's like, well, it could be an adjective here. How on earth would an adjective be used in place of Christ? Like, we don't say anointing.
We go around all the time and say, hey, and Mary, I'm going to go worship pretty today, or I'm going to go worship lovely today.
Like, it's very odd. It's a very, very odd argument.
I'm going to go worship wonderful. I'm going to go worship wonderful. That's about as close as you can get, I think.
Here you go. Yeah, I'm going to go worship wonderful. That makes no sense. Not the wonderful one. No, I'm going to worship wonderful.
Like, you could maybe say wonderful incarnate. I mean, you'd probably say wonder incarnate, or wonderful doesn't really work.
Yeah,
but,
no,
wisdom, right? You could say like wisdom.
Well, wisdom is a noun.
No, wisdom's a noun. Bad example.
You can't do it because it makes no sense.
I'm trying, but I was saying that you'd still have to say incarnate to make it clear what you're talking about. But I can't think of an adjective.
No,
you could even do that with.
Correct. You can't do it with an adjective because adjectives don't work that way in any language. They become substantives when they're used in this way. So I think something else that Mel just doesn't understand because he doesn't understand Arabic is that every native Arabic name has a meaning in Arabic. It's a word or it's a phrase. They all have meanings, all of them. Semitic languages all have shared roots because they have a shared history. Sometimes there are meanings in one or in another language that aren't there, roots in one language or another, but the vast majority of roots are shared across Semitic languages. The meanings of these roots aren't necessarily the same across languages because language meaning changes. They drift over time. Names in Arabic, they're either laudatory, that means they praise a person, or they're the names that parents give babies because of their baby traits. People can also get settled with nicknames that become names later on because other people get named after someone who had that name. So like if someone gets named somebody else's nickname, over time, a lot of times the nickname is the whatever. It's a title. And then other people get nicknamed with the full title as if it is still a title. And then after time, the al drops off and then it's just a name without a title. Now, Muawiyah,
but those are going to be nouns, right? Those are going to be nouns.
Yes. Muawiyah literally means the howler, or just means howler, like because you have a baby and the baby yells. So you name the baby howler.
A noun.
Abbas is the frown or the frowner. Mutalib is the one who makes many seekings. Umar means long living or flourishing. Amir means commander. They all have meanings. Most of them are
I don't
positive.
know. Long
Other
living.
ones, what?
That could be an adjective of
What?
sorts. Long living. That's kind of an adjective.
Well, the long living one really is what it ends up meaning. It means long life. The one, like it's not in this one. Like Amir, it's not an adjective. It's a noun.
Allah did help me out, though. Allah provided a revelation here of how we would do this in English. You'd put Mr. in front of it or Mrs. So Mr. Wonderful, Mr.
Turns
Amazing.
it into what? It turns it into a noun.
Yeah,
right?
well, yeah. I mean, it becomes a name, right? It becomes a noun. But that is how you would make a adjective into it. But that's not the claim here, obviously. But he did help me out because I couldn't even think of how to do it. He showed me how to do it. But yeah, you would never say, I'm going to church today to worship Mr. Amazing. Just silly. Oh, but Houston has a good point here, right? He says, Prince of Peace. You see, Islam means peace, sort of. I mean, it's a lot closer than MHMD, meaning Jesus. Let's put it that way. If you're going to play this kind of word game, then you allow the Muslims their word game, where Islam means peace. So when Isaiah 9:6 talks about the Prince of Peace, that means it's talking about the Prince of Islam, which is obviously Muhammad. You see, it's a prophecy of Muhammad, not of Jesus. Game over. Mary Myers stepped away. Oh, there you go.
Sorry, I got cold, so I had to run and get a jacket. All right, so here is Mel's misrepresentation of Kerr. And the really important part is the part in yellow, and here he just lies. The yellow is a lie. He knows it's a lie. He's making it up and attributing it to Kerr so that he can pretend that he's not the one making this up. It is a lie. All right. So he said, and this is a quote, if Makbed were intended to be an Arabic word in 7th century sources and an Arabic script, as opposed to a Hebrew word in Arabic script, then we would expect that when rendered in other languages, despite some variability, a consistent appearance of the U sound, as in Muhammad, should be present. And let me change that because this is the lie. This is also the lie. That's a lie. He's saying that Kerr is saying this. Kerr never said this. He is lying. Big liar. Make big lie.
So just to clarify, the reason it's a lie isn't because it's false, although it is false. The reason it's a lie is because he says Kerr said it. Or the reason we know it's a lie, right?
We know because it's Kerr absolutely not a mistake.
Say that.
Yeah. We know it's not a mistake and it's just a lie because Mel needs this to be true. And he has no reason to believe that Kerr has ever said this. And his entire argument is going to be based on this lie from Mel about Kerr. A consistent U sound, as in Muhammad, should be present. It needs to be a U for Muhammad. The variation in the final letter between D and T is not so significant as appears in other cases with other words. Kerr also doesn't say that. And I am not so sure that is true. Al-Jalad makes a point that it is quite unusual, that it is a D sometimes and a T sometimes. He says that there's a reasonable phonological reason why it would happen in such a long word like Muhammad, why it might be heard differently. But he points out that in a list of other words, like it doesn't happen. There is no variability. And like Zaid, for example, Zaid rather. Zaid always appears with a D. It never appears with a T. Not really sure what the T is about. Here's the point, though. If it is Hebrew, what does it end in? Everyone together. If it is Hebrew, what does it end in? It ends in a D.
A D?
It ends in a D. If it is Hebrew, it ends in a D. If it is Aramaic, what does it end in?
I'm going to go D.
It ends in a D. If it is Aramaic, it ends in a D. If it is Hebrew, it ends in a D. It cannot end in anything else. if this word is Aramaic or Hebrew, especially since there are Aramaic speakers. The whole theory here is that they're somehow getting this Hebrew via Aramaic. The Aramaic speakers are not going to be confused about an Aramaic word and what it ends in. They will know that it ends in a D because it's their native word. But again, he's just lying here. The U vowel is what distinguishes it.
I actually don't understand. Sorry. I don't actually understand what the argument is.
So the argument is whenever it appears in Coptic or Greek or Aramaic, Muhammad's name, again, Muhammad's name, that it will be written with a U in those other languages that will have
okay, so I let me just see if I'm correct here. So the argument is that we know that it was pronounced Mahmed in the 7th century because they don't transliterate it as a U in other languages.
Correct. That's what the argument is.
But they don't consistently transliterate it as an A.
They don't consistently transliterate as many things, but hang on one second.
That's my point, right? Yeah. Because you're saying that if it was, see, we know that they were actually saying Mahmed at the time because they consistently transliterated it as an A into other languages. That might be a valid argument. But to say, because it's inconsistent the way it's transliterated, it can't be a U makes no sense whatsoever.
No. Well, it's gonna get better. It's gonna get better. So, and again,
actually better or better as far as stupidity.
More hilarious.
Okay.
But what's really funny is that the automatic ones, I still think it sounds like Mahmed, but the auto correction change it to Mahed or Mahmed, but it's still got the E in there because Mel keeps mispronouncing Mahmad. He can't even pronounce the word that he wants it to be, which is hilarious. All right, so this is the Kerr's statement. I'm leaving out, I'm not bothering to translate everything out of here, but you guys can check up on it. Those of you, not Mel, because Mel can't read French, but everybody else. So the Hebrew noun in question, a maktal formation often used for abstraction, has the advantage of being able to express the first attestations of the Arabic rasam and the vocalized writing systems until the 9th century, such as Mamet. So he's basically saying that has the advantage of being able to express the first attestations. What he's meaning there is that the first attestations look like the Hebrew noun. So Kerr is saying that it looks like the Hebrew noun, but there's going to be a problem here we're going to run into a second. He's saying the double A Mamet could be Mahmad. No, it can't. No, it can't. No, it can't. Why? Because there is no D. If you are going to talk about, and this here is Greek, so maybe the Greek speakers aren't hearing things right. But if you're talking about Aramaic, they're not going to get their own word wrong. Their own word that they're supposed to know totally means Messiah. They're not going to get wrong.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
So
hold on a second, Mary. Hold on a second. First of all, Morkay says I'm a kufar. I spell it Mohammed. And which is a good point because even today, right? Even today, it's not consistently transliterated as a U. There are languages where it's normative to transliterate it as an A today. So it's a bit ridiculous, the argument on the face value. But what you said is actually a very good point, right? Because what Mel is claiming, and I'm not quite sure what Kerr is claiming, but what Mel is claiming for sure is that MHMD is a borrowed Aramaic word into Arabic. So if Aramaic speakers or Syriac speakers transliterate the name Muhammad in a way other than MHMD, that proves it's not a borrowed word. They would not mistake how to spell their own word.
Yep. That's the killer right there. It's their own word. They're not going to mistake how to spell it. They would know what it is. And it relies on all the Syriac Christians running around here at this time, knowing what this means, and somehow having never written it once in their lives that Mahmud refers to the Messiah. Somehow they all know it. So much so that it's being used as Messiah, and everybody just knows this. And yet they're misspelling it. That makes no sense at all. Anyway, he says the situation is similar in the Coptic.
Hold on. I just want to say this one, make this clear one more time. So we'll just take, right. It has to be languages with different scripts. So I can't take like an English borrowing from French or something. But let's just use the name Muhammad, right? Because that's what we're talking about. So the argument here would be, well, when we borrow Muhammad into English, the Arabic little squiggles become our letters, our Latin letters. And then the argument would be a Arabic speaker sees our Latin letters and misspells Muhammad's name in Arabic.
While knowing
what we're talking about, right?
Knowing what we're talking about, knowing who we're referring to, and misspelling it anyway. It's insane. It is lunacy. It is the most ludicrous, lunatic argument ever. So then anyway, he goes, the situation is similar in the Coptic testimonials. None of these representations can be a representation of the Arabic Muhammad, but rather well corresponds to a derivation of the Hebrew via Aramaic of the Hebrew form via Aramaic. Sorry, the French word order is funny and makes it sound really odd in English. The form Mahmad.
You're allowed to change the word order.
Yeah, sorry. I was just translating it like as I went and didn't reread the English well enough. Sorry. The forms such as Mahomet only appear in the 9th century, with one possible Coptic exception being the Coptic, and the letters here are Coptic. He does actually write Coptic here. My brain just didn't see it. The Coptic Muhammad. Well, guess what? That is an exception. It's not a possible exception. It is an exception. Muhammad was written in Coptic before the 9th century. Not only that, but Muhammad was transcribed in the Latin lives of Muhammad in the 9th to 13th century, spelled with what? A's at the beginning. And one of them is just spelled mammatus. Mammatus.
Yeah, very, very close, right?
Yeah. So, and this again is in Spain, where people are in contact with Muslims long after the time when now Muhammad has been invented and everybody knows what the name, and yet what are they doing? They're spelling it these other ways. And how many of those have a U as the first letter?
Oh, the first vowel? I mean, none of them.
The first vowel? Yeah, sorry.
None of these do.
Oh, none of them, not even one in Latin. But you see how we're going to know whether or not it's Muhammad or not is a consistent appearance of the U vowel. The U vowel ought to be there every single time. Otherwise, it's definitely not Muhammad, right? Definitely not. Let's look at this again.
Well, no, I mean, isn't that supportive though, right? Because, well, I guess these authors would somehow have to know that they're really trying to transliterate the Hebrew Mahmad.
Well,
but no, I mean, isn't that actually what their argument is? That because it's consistent, or at least more commonly transliterated as an A, that's how it was pronounced at the time?
No, here's the problem. This is too late. This is in the era when Muhammad has already been invented and everyone is saying Muhammad. All of these are late transliterations in the era when everybody has been tricked into now it being Muhammad and no longer Mahmad. And we're way out in Europe, where people wouldn't have been in contact with Islam before the 8th century at all. And by the 9th century, everything's been set in place. He's definitely Muhammad. So during all of these transliterations, he is absolutely
okay.
Muhammad.
So are you talking about according to Mel and Kerr?
Yeah, according to Mel and Kerr, it will have been changed by this point to Muhammad.
Okay.
And yet,
I mean, it's not even universal. I mean, the most common spelling in English, at least until it might have changed to a U in the last, 10, 15 years, but historically it's been an O.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I know. And so if you want to pretend, okay, well, I said you, but because I'm making this up and I'm Mel and I have absolutely no idea of anything historical. What I really meant was an O or U, even that can't get you anywhere because again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of these have A's as the first syllable, which he says absolutely cannot be the case if it's Muhammad's name. Only two of these don't have an A in the first syllable.
So just out of curiosity, right, this actually isn't super relevant, but why is it like mostly an A? Are people like hearing it as Muhammad?
Yeah, that's what their ears are doing.
Yeah, they're hearing it as Muhammad. Yeah, okay, that makes sense because
part of the reason is that they don't have this ooh sound. Like I'm making fun of Mel because later on he actually says Muhammad, but the sound is like between kind of this O and a U sound depending on where you are. Like it's that's why Omar is often written with an O. This kind of indistinct sound. Depending on what language you speak, you can hear it more like an A. It's not a strong ooh sound. It's something else.
Just so the audience knows, right? And actual philologists would know this, so Kerr certainly knows this. Vowels are not, there aren't just 5 vowels or 7 vowels or 10 vowels or something.
It's a vowel
way
space.
That's right. There's a range that constitutes a vowel, and different linguists will come to different conclusions about how many true vowels there are or whatever. But the point being that an A sound or a U sound or an O sound is not said the same way in different languages. Some people will say there's 40 different vowels. And obviously no language makes a distinction between 40 different vowels. I don't know what the max is in actual human languages, but I'm going to guess it's probably in the range of 10 or so.
No, English has way more than that. But 40 vowel sounds. Danish has 40. So yeah, it's crazy.
Okay. So then people will say, well, if Danish has 40, then people will say, there's 150 or something. Point being, right, that vowels are not easy to transliterate.
No.
Because
you just have to map.
I mean, just take the A sound alone, right? In English, there's 3 different A sounds.
Well,
which one do you mean when you transliterate it?
When you're transliterating, which one are you using? Yeah, it varies. So, and again, Syriac transcriptions of Muhammad. You know what? Very often, they actually are changing the name into something that sounds better in Aramaic because Muhammad, you don't have with the gemination and the Maktal form. I don't know whether that's even called that in Syriac rather than in Hebrew, but whatever the Syriac equivalent is, our Syriac speaker here might be able to tell me if he's taken formal grammar lessons, but it's just not a comfortable form for them to say. It just feels weird. Mel's theory is that something written as Mahmad, again, it's Mahmad or Mahmet or Mehmet, all of which are written, by the way, in Syriac. It's written in Syriac.
Mary?
Yeah?
I'm seeing a bit of a problem here.
What's that?
Because Mahmet was a common transliteration of Muhammad in English well into the modern era.
Yeah, that's through Turkish, by means of Turkish.
But it can't possibly be a transliteration of Muhammad. So we were apparently not referring to Muhammad.
There are guys
in
running
the
around
18th
today.
century, 19th century. I mean, what the heck?
Yeah, there are people running around today with Mehmet who are named after Muhammad, and that's what it becomes in some of these other languages when it's borrowed into these languages. But, he thinks that it would absolutely be written as Muhammad. Well, here's the problem. Our earliest Syriac source wrote it with the U he is looking for. They wrote it with the U. It had the U. This MW, that W is also a U. It is the only way that you can write it to show a U.
That's why it's called a W.
Yes. It's the Mater
That's not a joke.
Lectionis.
That is actually why it's called that.
Yeah, it's not a joke. It is why it's called that. V's, W's, yeah, it's a W because WV, V and U were the same letter. You write two of them together and that's a W. And it was to signify that you're using it in English as a consonant, but in many languages, the same letter had both a consonantal and a vowel quality to it in many writing systems. So here, he carefully wrote out the W, probably because if he didn't write it out, everyone would read it as Mahmad, because Mahmad would be what you would expect in Syriac. So instead, he added an extra letter to clarify that this is this new weird word. In the earliest Syriac version that we had, as people got more comfortable with this weird word, they've rendered it as Mahmad or Mahmet or Mehmet, which sounds easy. It works better in Syriac. It sounds easier to a Syriac speaker. It's less foreign and strange. Just like it weirds me out that people call guys named Angel, they called them Angel. It just bothers me because all the Angels I knew growing up were Angel, and that's just what you called. You didn't call them Angel. Mm-hmm. That was like suddenly sounds like a girly name to me. It changes from men's name to girl's name in my head. But anyway, Angel versus Angel. Whenever it becomes more Americanized, people say Angel instead, even though it's Angel. In the same way, people are adapting it to their language because it is very similar. They're adapting it to something that's easier, more comfortable to say. It is 12. What is he saying here? Only two. Go ahead and cover that. That's
I'll address it in a second. So
okay.
Truth, turn your volume on. Right, I'm putting this in chat as well.
Yep.
So turn volume on. I will answer this one question, and then, or it's really an accusation, and then you will be on topic. You will be on topic, or you will be blocked. So he says only 2 out of 12 disciples had gospels. I don't know why he said had.
Yeah.
He should have said wrote, right? That would be accurate. Had. I mean, everyone had the singular gospel.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, only 2 out of 12. One of them, those 12 being Judas, who committed suicide after betraying Jesus. So I guess he really should have said 2 out of 11. But, you know, he might not even be intelligent enough to know about Judas. Yeah. And they weren't written until decades after Paul. Yes, so reliable. And not only their authorship aren't even confirmed. So tell me how many companions of Muhammad wrote Qurans.
Yeah, how many wrote them down that you
Muhammad
have?
Wrote their own Qurans.
Yep.
Do let me know. Now, as far as written decades after Paul, that is not remotely accurate.
He refused to. He's now hidden on the channel because he said he's not going to turn on his volume. So,
did he literally say he went?
Yeah.
Turn it on?
He said no. So, all right, you're gone.
I'm going to finish answering the question. I'm going to finish answering this.
He's not even turning on his volume, but there are exactly 0 companions of Muhammad who had the Quran at the time that he died that was complete. No one had it. Not anyone. No one had a complete version. So, and it was made up by human beings putting things together as best they could. It's not made up. It was not drafted under the supervision of the Holy Spirit. Big difference. Mm-hmm. Anyway.
Or Muhammad, for that matter, right?
Yep. No, Muhammad
some of the
did
companions
not
said we should never create a Quran because Muhammad didn't do so. But I want to answer the rest of this accusation. They weren't written until decades after Paul. So Paul died sometime in the 60s. The Gospels were written no later than the 60s. I don't think that's decades after Paul. And their authorship aren't even confirmed. Yeah, you're correct. Their authorship isn't confirmed in an absolute 100% sense. That is correct.
Neither is any other author.
Confirmed in a 100% accurate sense. The author of any text in the history of the world. The novels of Stephen King. Who knows? Someone else might have written them and put that name on it. It's a possibility.
But keep
What we
in
have to look
mind,
at is the historical probability, and the historical probability, as long as you don't adopt idiotic atheist assumptions, is that all the gospels were written by the people whose names they bear. But
not
even
only
if they
that,
were written by someone else, it's kind of irrelevant because the text is reliable by the historical critical method. I know that Mel thinks that means criticizing something, but that's not what it means. The historical critical method has confirmed the historical reliability of the gospel accounts, and you will find secular atheist scholars who agree, for example, that Luke is an excellent historian. Now, they will say, obviously, we know that Jesus wasn't actually God, but we also know that when Suetonius writes about the Caesars and attributes divine attributes to them, he also is wrong, but that doesn't mean he's wrong about history. So sorry, you're just wrong about every single point in your little comment.
Yep. And keep in mind that if you use coherent methodologies that like people with 2 brain cells to rub together a cube worm use, then you are absolutely determined to set Matthew, Mark, and Luke as being completed by 62 AD. That's when it's completed. Mm-hmm. If you're gonna say that there is dependency in there, then guess what? You end up with 62 AD being the last possible moment, because there's no other reason for Luke for Acts to end as it does, except that you've caught up to the present day, and the present day at the end of Acts is 62 AD. That's when it was. So
so that's how you'd get Acts to be 62, which by consequence means that Luke could be no later than 62, which by consequence means the sources Luke uses could be no later than 62. Everyone will agree that Luke uses Matthew as a source, or at least has common source material. Some people will say that Mark comes after Luke. The majority opinion is that Mark becomes before Luke, in which case it would have to be before 62. If it comes after, everyone agrees that it's still before the year 70. Yep. And while not everyone agrees John is written before the year 70, I think the evidence is quite extraordinary in favor of it being written before the year 70 as well, which means none of the Gospels were written long after the death of Paul, and quite plausibly, at least 3 of them, and potentially all 4, were completed before Paul died.
So someone said that Mel said in Lloyd's channel that he's not a Momo. Mo did exist, but then things were kind of later attributed to him. Then why are you trying to claim that Muhammad in all the sources is actually Jesus?
Well, I don't know if this
person
is claiming that.
Yeah, it's not. It would be absolutely ludicrous. And I mean, Mel says ludicrous things on a daily basis. But again, keep in mind that the first attestation to Muhammad's existence that we have in Syriac has the U as an added letter specifically to do what? To emphasize that it's this weird form. Yuval distinguishes it. He has to admit that this is Muhammad. Yeah.
At the same time, Muhammad Mythism, as telling us that this could only be Jesus, will tell us that it was a title used for all kinds of rulers.
Yep. And
which is not at all consistent with it being a special title that you automatically know is about Jesus. That would be like me saying, if I just say king without any context, you know it's about Jesus.
Yep.
Can Jesus be called king? Absolutely. In some context where you know what's being referred to, can you say king without specifying and know that it's Jesus? Yes. But that's not the argument. The argument is that this is such a special, super duper awesome word that is only associated with Jesus, that every time you see it, no matter how implausible it is, it must be Jesus. But also
Correct.
it's a common title used by rulers of themselves.
Yep. But again, as they became more used to it, they began saying it in a way that was more comfortable for them. And in the same way that we say aide de camp and not aide du camp, right? We don't say it in a French way. So Syriac forms actually disprove it that it's a title because it's taking a different trilateral root, which would mean that they could not possibly consider it to be the same as their Mahmad when sometimes they write it with a T. The reason why you can tell, whenever you write down something a Minnesotan does, if a person from Minnesota says that, would you like a bag? You know it's a bag because they're from Minnesota and you speak English and you understand that in context that's the word that they mean. If you are supposed to have understood that this is Mahmad, you would not say it, you would not write it wrong in your own language. It makes no sense. So
Good Emperor says, I wonder if the Nomo Mythos argument actually helps Islam in some way. I mean, that kind of depends. It kind of depends on what you mean by Islam. Now, I can say with 100% certainty, it helps Quranists because it gives them strong justification for denying the Hadith, in other words, denying the vast majority of Islamic doctrines. I think it probably also would help an Orthodox Muslim because they can just say, well, clearly Muhammad existed, and it's such an easy argument to make that even a clueless Muslim can make the argument that Muhammad existed. But then they'll say, well, you're admitting that, you're not certain about X, Y, and Z. So how dare you criticize, child marriage or whatever, or jihad or whatever else criticism you bring against Islam, because you claim you don't know what Muhammad taught. You claim he didn't even exist. So yeah, I think that it is helpful to Muslims. And Nathan says, definitely helps Islam when non-Muslims are arguing among themselves over what Muslims would consider a nothing burger. Well, even if we weren't arguing, it would be helping Muslims by us completely wasting our time on an argument that is of no value to them. And the reason Mary and I are opposing this, right, the reason we've decided to spend some of our time on it is because we think it does damage to Christianity, not because of the reasons Mel said at the beginning, where we're afraid of Christianity being examined, but because it makes us look stupid. And the vast majority of Muslims will probably only, at best, have one opportunity to seriously consider an argument of a Christian. And if this is the argument they hear, they're going to have their confidence in Islam increased. Probably not immediately, but immediately it will probably cause them doubt. It will probably, be really uncomfortable. But if they spend 2 seconds of effort looking into it, they'll realize how terrible of an argument it is. And like, well, if this is the argument Christians are making against Islam, then Islam must be the truth, and never consider another argument.
Yep.
And that's why we are opposing this, because, well, that and the fact that Christians should never stand on falsity, regardless of the practical benefit thereof. And hope that clears it up.
Continuing on, the 9th century Byzantine court formalized Moimet, and whenever our local weird stuff is going to yell at me, but that's the best I can do is Moimet. But again, this one doesn't even start with the U either, by the way. The modern official version actually does have a U at the beginning. So there you go. You finally get your U, only in the modern age. Before that, it's some other word, right? John of Damascus just writes it as Mohammed, which is probably filtered through Syriac, even though his background was Saracen ethnicity. He filtered it through what some Aramaics called it, but a lot of others wrote it with 2 A's and either a D or a T. Again, D or T, there's a variation there because why? It wasn't made equivalent to Mahmad, But I want you to keep in mind, and there are two other modern ones, both of which have O's, not U's, not U's. Only the modern official one has the U. But I want you to keep in mind that Rahab or Rahab in James is written with two A's and no H at all. Why is it written with two A's? Because two A's are never written in Hebrew. Two vowels are not written in Hebrew together that are the same vowel ever, unless they mean to have an H between them. So this is Mahamed and Mahamet. So his name is written as Mahamed and Mahamet in any number of early writings. It is not just written as two syllables. These are three-syllable names. Another example, and then this is Al-Jalad giving one possible answer to it, but the double vowel always means that there's something in between it. Abraham, similarly, it has two A's together because you don't have the plain H in Greek, and the H is not quite the strongest one. It's not the Khadija sound. It's just a Muhammad sound. So it isn't quite strong enough to warrant being given the chai, as we say it in English, as a letter. So these are three-syllable letters in these early sources. It isn't always written that way, but sometimes it is. Yeah.
You said letters, but you obviously meant words.
Sorry,
so two quick
words.
comments from the audience. Marion says, since when were Christians afraid of Christianity examined? Well, apparently since Mel gave his divine interpretation of my thoughts, that's when I have been afraid of it, because he said I was terrified. He said all of us sin apologists are terrified of having Christianity examined critically. Not remotely true.
His version of it,
more than a decade looking into the historical evidence for Christianity before I said one word about Islam. But I'm terrified because that's the only possible explanation as to why I would oppose Mel.
His version of historical examination is and making things up. You could say and make things up to anything. Anything. We went to the moon.
Yeah.
The world is round.
Mel is a human being. Good Emperor says, also, I'm pretty sure the Quran itself doesn't deny Muhammad existing. The vast majority of Muslims believe Muhammad wrote the Quran. You misunderstood, good Emperor. I'm not saying that you could believe Muhammad didn't exist and be a Quranist. I'm saying that it gives you a license to reject other things while still believing Muhammad existed, right? You could say, well, yeah, they have half a point in that the Hadith are made up stories about Muhammad. But we know that the real Muhammad, the person who brought the Quran, was, a true prophet and whatnot. Right? They could say, yes, they correctly have identified that the Muhammad of the Sunnah is false, but that doesn't mean Islam is false, because Islam is the Quran, you see, and that the Quran says Muhammad existed, so he definitely did. Obviously, if you accept Muhammad didn't exist and is a myth made up 200 years later, you can't believe in anything remotely resembling Islam, but that's not what people will do, right? They'll pick and choose and use it as justification. And this isn't speculation on my part, by the way. There are many Quranists in the comments of Jay Smith's videos saying, as a Quran-only Muslim, I love your videos. Keep exposing the fake Sunni narrative.
Yep, because it allows them to make up whatever they want. Allows them to make up whatever they want. So anyway, the Coptic transcriptions, I don't know enough about Coptic to be able to tell you what the double A's mean there. They may just mean that they're copying what, because most people who wrote Coptic also spoke Greek, that they may just be copying Greek forms. But notice it's always a T. It's always a T. It's never a D early on until you get the full Mohammed in one of the early documents. Most of the time it ends with a T because they don't see it as being Mahmud. The Armenian source, which like Kerr just lies about, because he mentions the Armenian source, he just lies about, it's Muhammad, like fully spelled out, even with gemination of the double M's, even though gemination is not a native feature of Armenian. They were trying to capture the sound as best they could. Now we're going to play a game called Is It AI in Mel's most recent
All right. So before we move
Mhm.
on to that, let me take this super chat since this is a good break point from Joshua Wooden.
Wasting your time on social media is one of the best deeds a Muslim can do. There's a huge need for it. You know this and I know this. So that makes the reward even greater. So give generously and Allah Azza wa Jal will give you even more.
So Joshua says, great work as usual. After the stream, I have a question that won't fit in a super chat. Yeah, put that in the comments. We will be sure to address it. If it's just a general question, I might answer. If it's specific for Mary, I'll make sure that she is given a direct link to it and answers. I mean, I'm sure she'd probably check on her own, but point being, we'll make sure it gets answered. I am Dar Al-Harb as well, but smart and witty as always, Mary Al-Harb. Thank you very much for your financial support. And like I said, we will be happy to answer your question. Keep wasting your time on social media. All right. So this is where the title of the video comes. This is one of the inspirations of the title of the video. It's what we're talking about today. Mel is not the only one, as will be shown in later video, scripted video out later this week. But we're going to look at Mel's most recent video after he went on Jay Smith's, said, my bad, I apologize about using AI. I didn't realize it would hallucinate. I won't do it again. He publishes this video 2 days ago, 1 day ago, yesterday. He publishes this video. So let's see if he actually learned his lesson. He said he learned his lesson. Let's see if he actually learned his lesson.
So this is going to be a game for everyone. From now on, you get to vote on whether or not his slides are AI or not. These are the slides from this as he continues on giving his reasons why Muhammad is actually Mahmed and somehow means Jesus. Here are his reasons. First one is from Gabriel Reynolds. Now, those of you who actually follow his posts will actually have a little bit of a clue as to whether or not he would have this book in his possession and be able to read it. So take your vote. Is this one AI or not AI? Notice the format. You know, it doesn't even start with a capital letter. So that's actually a hint for everybody, by the way, that this one is the first one that is the first one that has it is not AI, and I have this book too. So I checked it, and this is in fact an actual quote. And he starts out saying that Bell was talking about how Bell claims that that Quran was borrowed from the Syriac Qadiana. And then he admits that that's not actually plausible. So note here, Gabriel Reynolds is saying that this is not a borrowing. This is not pronounced this way. This is not the Syriac word written in Arabic. This is actually a native Arabic word written in Arabic, but sense that it's always used in the Quran about itself. This strongly suggests that its intended meaning was shaped by the Syriac Qadiana, the lectionary or compilation of scripture passages used for public recitation in a liturgical setting. I think that this is incoherent, and I'll explain in a second why, but that's his argument. It would be something like a semantic loan. Does this actually support Mel's position? No,
wait. Sorry. So semantic loan is a very strange phrase, but I think what he's saying is it's an existing word with an existing meaning, but they borrow the meaning into the word. Is that what he's trying to mean by semantic loan, as opposed to a normal loan word where you just take the word and the meaning?
Right. So what he's saying is, okay, it's an Arabic word, but its meaning was borrowed from the Syriac parallel because of how it's used. Now, I think that that's very silly. And I will explain why right here.
Hold on. If you could go back to that slide real quick, I want to make a point here, right?
Because it doesn't support
Mel at all. It doesn't support Mel's argument because what is Reynolds actually arguing? He's arguing that the word Quran is the meaning of the Quran is shaped by Syriac thought, which is not remotely Mel's claim about Muhammad. And it's not about Muhammad, right? If his claim about Muhammad was so credible, right? This is like saying rendezvous is a French term borrowed into English. So every French word is also, or every English word that matches a French word is also borrowed from French. Right? So the chair and the pain and the...
Yeah. So again, Mel's big point here is that you need the U, otherwise it is not an Arabic word at all. It must necessarily be, and no, not like Injil from Evangelion at all. Injil is an actual borrowing. So Injil was the word in Greek. It was borrowed into Arabic. So it's a true borrowing. But Quran is a native Arabic word, he admits. It's totally an Arabic word, but he says that they're just borrowing the meaning from somewhere else. That's not what Mel's arguing. It doesn't support Mel's argument in any way. If this is done with totally unrelated other words, that they have borrowed meanings, but they've retained their Arabic forms, that is not an argument for Muhammad's name actually being Mahmad or Mahmed, which would be an actual borrowed word. It's not the same argument. It's a complete different argument. It doesn't support him at all. He just bought a new book and is trying to quote something from it. That's what this first one is. So this one is not AI. This is a real quote. Does absolutely nothing for him, does not support him, is not even related to any of his claims, but he's using it. Reynolds is wrong anyway, though. Because he says it's using the Quran for the divine messages and warnings. Its meaning, it's shaped by the Syriac anyway. But Muhammad is doing the act of reciting. And he's referring to his own act of reciting. The entirety of what he recites is a divine message. So, of course, anytime that he is using reciting in the context of the Quran, it's going to be a divine message. That's not weird. That's not strange. That's not unusual. And a lectionary is also something that is specially arranged for recitation, which is not what Muhammad was doing, which is not what the Quran, its pre-compiled form was. And it makes no sense for that to be used that way. He also attempts later to link the words Reynolds and, of course, neither one of them know any better. Both Reynolds and Reynolds is not a linguist. And so he repeats what Arthur Jeffries did, trying to link Salat and Zakat to Syriac because they use a matrilectionis for the U, but that's because of the Hijazi dialect that the Rasam is written in, and it does not reflect a Syriac borrowing at all whatsoever. Rather, it reflects extra vowels that Hijazi Arabic uniquely had compared to other Arabic dialects. It had a larger vowel selection. The word lectionary, again, it means something to read from. And in English, it's a technical term, right? But originally in Latin, it would just be a description of something, that it's something that you read from. In the same way, Quran became the name of the book, didn't start out that way. Mm-hmm. The Quran is often used in the indefinite in the Quran precisely because it's not technical. It's not being used in a technical way. This is a Quran. You can't say a lectionary within a lectionary. The lectionary is a whole thing. It makes no sense for it to be used for these little portions of recitations unless it just means a recitation. The proof that it's not technical is that it wasn't the original name of the book that the Muslims use. So it's not tenable that the original audience thought was technical. There was a technical specific word because it wasn't used that way by Muhammad It was called Furqan when it was called anything at all at first, because it took a while for Quran to catch on, and Furqan probably got dismissed because the Torah is also given that name. So Reynolds just doesn't back up the idea that Muhammad specifically could be informed by any Aramaic or Hebrew meaning among the near borrowed words. That is, that he and his audience have accurate knowledge of these technical words, their true meanings, that he really means that this is a lectionary. I mean, he's reciting, he's not reading. And yeah, the word's the same, but why would he have made equivalent the action of Christians who were reading from a book and then use that as a technical term for his recitation? Like, it seems kind of odd. No, I don't deny that it's a possibility that this is happening with some word, but I see lots of examples of Arabic meanings being imposed on borrowed words rather than the reverse. So yes,
well, I mean, that's what you would expect, right?
Yeah.
This phenomenon. So I actually looked up this phenomenon because I wasn't familiar with this particular term, and Wikipedia provides a couple great examples of this. So a number of languages have apparently done this phenomenon with computer mice, because they already had an existing word for the animal mouse. And now this computer mouse has been invented, and they've adopted their normal word for the creature, the animal, to also refer to the computer mouse. And that would be a case of semantic borrowing, because they're borrowing the semantic meaning from English without borrowing the English word and assigning it to an existing word. And they do also have an example of this in English, which is not quite as obvious, but I think is also interesting, because I was trying very hard to find an example of this in English, because I wanted to actually talk about it. Most of it, not surprisingly, since English is the dominant language of international commerce and whatnot, most examples are people borrowing English meanings into their own languages. But there is an example in English which any native speaker is going to understand here. So the Yiddish term that meant already, the most literal sense of already that you would know, also carried the idea of impatience as a completely unrelated meaning of the same word. But this has been borrowed into English, where you can use already to express impatience, like hurry up already, right? That's not the normal use of already, but it's been borrowed from Yiddish because Yiddish speakers started to use already this way, and other English speakers picked it up over time. And now it's a normal way to speak in English, right? To use already to express impatience. So very, very cool phenomenon. But it is obviously extremely rare, right? It's not a normal thing that happens very often.
And the thing is, because these are sister languages, it would be more likely for this to occur. But the more usual thing is that you hear a false cognate, a word that has a different meaning in another language, and then when you use it in your own language, you might use it kind of in the same context, but then you throw on the meaning of the word that you already have into that. And that's what happens over and over again in the Quran. For example, alamin is borrowed in the sense that it is copying olam, meaning forever and ever, ages, right? It's a word in its original context, it means ages. But whenever the equivalent of that is used, it's not used to mean ages. It's not used to mean forever and ever. It's used instead to mean sentient beings, because the root has a lot to do with the word has to do with knowledge in Arabic. So they borrow the word, but then put the Arabic meaning onto it. Another example of that is Islam. There is an Muslim. There was a Syriac word that means to devote oneself to God. And that meaning was taken, that word was taken, but then the meaning of surrendering after a battle was used instead. So submission, surrender, give up, and give over, that kind of surrender, rather than devote. I mean, think about how less negative devote sounds than to submit to a power after you've lost a war, like surrender, right? It's a very different connotation, but the Arabic connotation dominated. The idea of kufr was borrowed from Syriac, where it did mean from the phrase where it talks about covering up the truth. That's where it comes from in Syriac, and was imported into Arabic with the meaning of disbelief in general. And so it's a more general word of all disbelief. That is one where that may actually be, that one may possibly be a semantic borrowing there. So that may be a semantic borrowing. But over and over and over again, and again, I couldn't think about an example then. That might be a true example of semantic borrowing. That might be a real semantic borrowing of something that acquired that meaning in Syriac, and then actually the meaning pretty much transferred fairly well into Arabic. But the vast majority of the cases where words are borrowed, Muhammad misunderstands them and misconstrues their meaning. Mm-hmm. So to just say that it's definitely got this link, I don't see any reason to say that. But even if it did,
all right,
support Mel at all.
I got to announce the results here. Obviously, people voted before they heard the answer. 86% assumed it would be AI. 14% said not AI. So basically what we're doing here is we're playing a Twitch streamer or terrorist, and it'll be very hard to tell which ones are AI and which ones are legit.
And really, this is a question because we are determining which ones of these are AI hallucinations. So how about this one? The Quran frequently uses vocabulary and motifs that echo the Syriac Christian idiom current in the religious culture of late antique Arabia. All right, everybody, go ahead and put up the new one. Is this one going to be, and by the way, the last one had a couple of hints that it wasn't, aside from the fact that if you were following Mel, you actually knew he bought that book. He's made it to like page 50 now. Wow, Mel. With his great research, he bought this a couple months ago. It's now at page 50 or so.
Wait. He only bought this a couple months ago? I mean,
well, it's a new book.
Oh, okay.
The Christianity and the Quran.
Reynolds is like the leader in this field. And
yeah. Well, he's a leader.
I didn't realize it was a newly published Reynolds book.
Yeah, he's a leader in the Syriac, folks who want to push the idea.
Reynolds, but to be clear, Reynolds takes a far more reasonable approach. You would disagree with the vast majority of what Mel claims.
I would disagree with Reynolds on a bunch of places because he says very silly things very often, but he's not ridiculous. He's not absurd. I don't think he has a good reason for saying a lot of the stuff that he says, and I don't think that he is as instructive a contributor as other people are, but he's not absolutely absurd. But here we go. Is this one AI or not? Give it a vote. Give it a try. We are going to actually look at the pages. I found them and scanned them because, I check sources. What we are looking for, the Quran frequently uses vocabulary and motifs that echo the Syriac Christian idiom. All right, here's the top of the page.
Well, hold on. Let me. I actually don't know the answers to any of these except for one.
Mm-hmm.
However, the fact that it uses both the apostrophe and the accented A is possible, but it would put me on the side of AI on this one. Because most people, while that is the technically correct way to write it, most people don't write it that way.
Look at that. Mel, whenever he copied it, whenever he's writing on his own, he doesn't put that. This is copied from something. Anyway. And notice here, the Syriac Christian idiom. Syriac Christian idiom. Very weird. Current in the religious culture.
Yeah, that is true. Right? That technically doesn't make sense. Uses
Syriac
vocabulary and motifs. Okay. Yes, that is correct. Echo the Syriac Christian idiom. Idiom is not used correctly there, right?
No.
I think I what it's trying to say is kind of like the manner of speaking, or maybe you could use like motif or something, or milieu, but idiom is not a technically correct term there. So yeah, this is AI.
This echo is very weird too. The sentence is off. It's not a sentence that a human would write. Here are the actual pages. You guys can read if you want to. There's really no point in reading it because it has absolutely nothing to do with that. All it's doing is talking about the companions of the cave in the Quran, which says absolutely nothing about vocabulary coming from Syriac. Nothing, not a word of Syriac vocabulary in there. Nothing about motifs coming from an idiom. No, nothing about that. Nothing about that. It's just saying.
And look, I was wrong. The author actually does write Quran that way, but I was also correct.
Yeah. but he doesn't. It's a different. The punctuation is different.
It's a different apostrophe.
Yes, this one is not a true apostrophe. This one is an apostrophe. The other one's the C, the tiny C. Anyway, so again, they're saying you should read the Surah of the Cave against the background of the legend of the companions of the cave in earlier Syriac homiletic and liturgical tradition, which of course is what anybody would do because it's a borrowing from it. So yeah, has nothing to do with that. Nothing that he writes in this entire thing is relevant to this idea. And what would this have to do with Mahmed or Mahmad anyway?
Mm-hmm.
But he's not
so
saying
just to
anything
acknowledge
like
real quick here, Clyte says that he suggested me as a debate moderator to someone. I'd be happy to do that. I have actually moderated a couple debates on my channel. So
this is in the wrong place.
Thank you for thinking of me.
I'll just start from here anyway.
I was right and wrong at the same time. You see, I'm a genius.
And here, this one going to be?
All right. You got to give me a chance here, right?
Let's give you a chance.
Put it in.
Put it up.
We had 87% AI on that one. Good job, guys.
So is this one going to be AI, guys? Of all the foreign elements discernible in the Quran, the Syriac influence is the most pervasive and significant, supplying much of its religious terminology.
So when I scanned through the thing and saw the slides, I assumed that like the ones that were authors that are well known in this particular area were probably real quotes that he had from the past before AI was a thing. However, Jeffrey, Mary put at the top of the slide, Mel has not moved past 1938. I didn't know the exact time, but I was going to say he's like 100 years ago, give or take.
Yeah.
I can pretty much guarantee he didn't write Quran that way. This is a fake quote.
There you go. Anyway, Jeffrey catalogs hundreds of loan words. He says, and notice he says, Furqan, Malakut, Rahman, Salah, Zakat, and
yeah, I also knew that Syriac is not number one on Jeffrey's list. I believe it's Greek.
No, it is Syriac. It is Syriac and
okay.
Greek is.
I was pretty sure it's Greek, but either way.
But here's the thing: you can't actually tell whether or not something's from Syriac or Aramaic, meaning Palestinian Christian Aramaic was pretty much dead by this time. So Syriac is kind of like a synonym for Christian, or Aramaic dialects are the Jewish dialects. All right. You can't tell whether or not it's from a Jewish or Christian source. Jeffrey, for some reason, really likes to say everything's Christian, even though he has no reason to point to Syriac over Aramaic. He does anyway. But beside that, 3 of the examples here are not actual borrowings from Aramaic or Syriac. Salah, even as it is written in the Quran, is not a borrowing. It reflects the Hijazi dialect. Zakat, is not a borrowing the way it is written. It reflects the Hijazi dialect. Rahman, that is Old South Arabian. It is not Aramaic. It is not an Aramaic word. It's not an Aramaic borrowing. It's Old South Arabian. There is no point in which that any form of that root was used as a name for God in Aramaic. It is only used that way in Old South Arabian. So it's not a borrowing from Aramaic. So now you have Furqan is an Aramaic borrowing. Malakut probably also is. So of the 5, only 2 are Syriac borrowings. And if Mel knew absolutely anything about what he was talking about, because remember, his arguments require a lot of linguistics, he ought to know that already. But he doesn't. So anyway.
So just out of curiosity, did you? Oh, okay. Never mind.
Here's the page. Everybody time to vote. Everybody time to vote. So here's the page. And guess what? It is, in fact, a hallucination.
So, okay, maybe this page doesn't show. Just out of curiosity, did you actually look at Jeffrey's list and see how if he even classifies?
Yeah, no, he does. I've read him a long time ago, and he did claim that that's why I said he hasn't moved past 1938. These are taken from his book, and he's just, he thinks that spider's a borrowing, and it's like actually a native Arabic word. At this time, the knowledge of Arabic was
does he specifically say all of these 5 are Syriac?
I believe he does.
So that part wouldn't actually be false in that the claim that Jeffrey said that.
Right. But
it is still a hallucination because this isn't a real quote.
Yeah, it's not a real quote.
Right? Even if it is correct in content, it is not an actual real quote.
Yep. And here's another weird phrase. He catalogs hundreds of loanwords and identifies Syriac as their primary linguistic source. That's an incoherent sentence.
What? A loanword has one source.
Right. So that's an incoherent sentence. And the fact that you don't realize that it's writing nonsense is really telling of you. Anyway, these are the footnotes here, just in case you think I might be hiding something. This is page 6. Does not say that. Doesn't say what he says it says. Because guess what?
The fact that I just want to point something out here.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that he puts the page numbers up there, so he demonstrates that
he's just copying and pasting.
He could easily check it, and he's just so arrogant and or lazy that
yes, both.
He just puts a fake page number that takes 30 seconds to prove it is not a real quote.
And this one too took 30 seconds to prove it wasn't a real quote. So far we have one. The one that he wrote by hand is an accurate quote. Here's another one.
All right. Hold on. We had 78% on the last one. I'll try to wait a little bit longer to give my opinion. Well, okay. Actually, I know the answer to this one.
You know the answer to this one, so you shut your mouth. So anyway, Mel has sneak edited out one section from his video. He did sneak edit, but we managed to grab it before he did a sneak edit. So here is the quote. He starts out, Angelica Neuwirth, he called her, a very famous German scholar, and not one for historical critiques by any stretch of the imagination. Because again, Mel is not smart enough to know what a critical method is. And he thinks that a critical method means criticizing or finding fault with things. Because he's not very bright, he doesn't think that Angelica Neuwirth does a historical critical method, when in fact she does textual criticism at a level that he can't comprehend. But anyway, she says that the Quran emerged with a late antique environment saturated with Aramaic, particularly Syriac, Christians' expressions of piety, which are often mirrored in its diction and imagery. Okay, guys, is this one AI or not?
Yeah. I mean, we've kind of given this one away. I mean, he obviously edited it out for a reason. I obviously knew the answer for a reason. But I do want to, before saying why this is obviously AI, I do want to comment that, I mean, very famous is kind of a weird thing to say about any scholar, but Angelica is in fact a well-respected scholar. This book that this supposedly comes from has very glowing critical reviews published in academic journals. You won't find any critical reviews of Kerr published in any academic journals because he's not taken seriously, for example. And you'll find many reviews are negative or neutral, but the reviews I saw of this work are very positive. Mary read a portion of it. But of course, Mary doesn't agree with everything she says, and she does take a somewhat friendly tone.
She takes a very friendly tone toward
towards this. We do agree with her methodology, and she has some very harsh words about people who Mel would say are geniuses and doing everything right. She basically says their methodology is utter trash. Now, on the quote, you got 2 M dashes. That's a dead giveaway. That this is 99% certain that
whoever wrote this doesn't understand what the relationship between Aramaic and Syriac is.
I was going to get to the details, but just the fact that there's M dashes already is like a 99% chance that it's AI generated. And then environment saturated with Aramaic, particularly Syriac, Christian expression of piety. That's
weird.
One, that's not how you use an M dash, and 2, that doesn't make any sense. If you're using the term Aramaic for the 7th century, it is a synonym for Syriac. Particularly Syriac doesn't make any sense.
Like, so, yeah, for Christian in the 7th century, Syriac is going to be Christian. Christian is going to be Syriac in the 7th century. So, saturated with Syriac Christian expressions of piety. That's just a really weird phrase, which are often mirrored in its diction and imagery. She says no such thing whatsoever. Like, oh, and by the way, someone says, Mel,
this was not Mary or I, to be clear.
Was not us.
Someone else.
Don't block him, Mel. This was not me. This wasn't me coming up with a new username. This was someone else calling you out. Mel, I'm trying to track your source for the following quote you mentioned. I can't find it on 92. Are you able to refer to me to the correct page in the book version? I double-checked this quote, and it appears to be AI-generated summation. So he's still saying it's a summary. He's still saying that it's an accurate summary. It's a summation. This is what Mel still thinks.
Hey, Mary, in academic work, if you say something is a quote of a person and it's actually a paraphrase or summary of their work, is that considered kosher? Is that considered fine, or is that considered fraud?
Misconduct. It's misconduct. It's academic misconduct.
So even if his little justification is correct, it still is what would be considered academic fraud. Since Mel wants to tell us we're not academics and whatnot. Interesting.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it was behind a paywall, so I couldn't double check it. Guess what? He could double check the other ones.
Well, wait a second. I double checked this. I couldn't double check this.
Yep.
So you're telling us that you spent the money to double check it after someone called you out, but you didn't before? Yeah, right.
The other ones were free. And notice we have, of the 4, 3 so far have been AI hallucinations. I will have to stop trusting AI for quotes. So his public humiliation earlier wasn't good enough. Wasn't good enough.
What did we call him out for? What is my 15-minute video about? Yeah, it technically says Jay, but we all know the quotes came from Mel. Right? Because Jay's the one who said.
Yep.
Jay's the one who said them to an audience of 1 million people, so I made it about Jay. But Mel went and admitted they were not real quotes and that it was his fault, not Jay's fault. Well, it is also Jay's fault, by the way, not checking the source. So Jay is actually also responsible, but Mel admitted that it was his fault for fake quotes. What is he doing?
Putting out fake quotes all
from
the time.
AI.
Just AI fake quotes, left, right, center. Had absolutely. Arthur Jeffrey might agree with this statement if it were put in a human way. Sidney H. Griffith absolutely did not say this and didn't imply it and doesn't have this opinion. So let's look at some of the things that, and I'm not sure how I got everything all out of order. I'm just special that way. But after finding out he had AI hallucinations, he still thinks it's an accurate summation. He is too stupid to understand what the book actually had in it.
Well, no, Mary, he says he double checked it. I don't believe him. I think that he just assumed that if someone's calling him out, it's a hallucination, deleted it from the video, made up an excuse, and moved on. I seriously doubt he double checked it even after the fact.
Because again, he's saying it's a summation. And if he were not a filthy, dirty liar, he is a liar one way or another, because it's not a summation.
Yeah, well, there's nothing.
5 seconds to look at her work, you would know it could not be a summation.
Yeah.
It is not behind a paywall. And he still thinks it's
well, I mean, it probably also is, but Mary and I found it on the Internet Archive, which is not a paywall site, and it's not an obscure site either. And now, is it available on some academic site behind a paywall? Probably. I mean, it's a very expensive book.
Yes. And it, yeah.
But again, I think that Mel I don't think he even tried. I think he just was called out, made up a lie that, I decided to double check it. I couldn't before because it was behind a paywall. But now that some random person said something in a comment, I paid the money and double checked it. Because it's not like this video had only been out an hour or something. It's not like he suddenly decided, okay, I'm going to get an interlibrary loan and wait for a week for that to arrive and check. I mean,
so
I think he made it up. I don't think he checked anything.
Let's see what she actually does say, because she's a very intelligent woman, unlike Mel, who is not an intelligent person in the least. He probably can't understand these words, but I think that my audience can, because I think they're a lot smarter than he is. She says, there is a particular hermeneutical danger in the purely linguistic and philological approach to the search for the influence of Syriac on the Arabic Quran. For the ingenuity of the philologist can all too readily manipulate the linguistic materials into possible grammatical and lexical formulations solely on the basis of philological or orthographic considerations, which leave out of account that degree of historical or cultural probability which is requisite for plausibility. These have too many big words for Mel, so I will help his very small brain be able to understand this. There's a particular danger.
Well, before you do that, let me just, before you beat this big, let me just say, in one sentence, this is a sick burn on Mel.
Yes.
All right, go ahead.
This absolutely destroys him, except he's not very clever at all. He just repeats what he thinks other people are saying. So there's a particular interpretive danger. It's a danger to use this interpretive approach to just go, what can I do with linguistics and philology, which is like the words themselves, and what can I find here that I could claim is Syriac out of this book? Because if you are trying to be extra clever, you can artificially manipulate the materials solely on the basis of some kind of word consideration connection or a writing connection, like the U that is in Salat. If you are too ignorant and you don't know that that's the Hijazi dialect showing through, you'll be like, they wrote it with the U, so it's really the Syriac. You'll do it on orthographic. That means how it's written considerations, which leave out of account how probable this is, whether or not it's even plausible, whether or not this is a ridiculous claim. Just like you could go to an English text and claim Latin influences on it because you can claim that various words originally were from Latin or whatever. And that actually would be true, whereas Arabic and Syriac are sister languages that are much more closely related than the Indo-European that connects the Latin languages with the Germanic languages. And so she's saying, you're making stuff up because you're proud of your cleverness. In other words, from a responsible interpretive point of view, responsible, goodness, Mel has never been responsible a day in his life with information. Purely grammatical or etymological readings of words and phrases in the Arabic Quran on the basis of a presumed underlying Syriac must be supported by reference to a thematic context, which would make them not only possible and plausible, but in all likelihood the carriers of the authentic originally intended meaning. Therefore, you need a Syriac context in which Jesus has been called Mahmad, which does not exist. So, and again, she says an important hermeneutical ingredient in recognizing Syriacisms, such as this one in the Arabic Quran, is a concomitant recognition that the Quran repeats such locutions, phrases for its own rhetorical purposes, which may very well be very different from the Christian purpose in coining or contriving the usually awkward Arabic words or phrases in the first place, or simply Arabicizing Syriac terms. For the Quran's posture toward Christianity is primarily one of critique. Rhetorically, its critique is the more effective and the more accurately it repeats actual Christian formulae in the context of the Quranic revelation that would highlight the perceived Christian inadequacy, or on the Quran's principles, its falsity. So basically, whenever they borrow words from a Christian context or from a Jewish context, which actually happens massively more often, whenever they're borrowing these things and trying to deploy them, it helps a lot if they are deploying them if they are accurately repeating actual Christian formulae or Jewish formulae. That's why you have the alamin in the Arabic, because it's trying to mimic and take authority from this Aramaic usage. It's trying to take on itself the fact that it has this standing and knowledge and show itself to be knowledgeable, but at the same time, it's recontextualizing the Quran. And there it clearly means sentient beings and isn't a true borrowing in the sense that it is understanding that it's just repeating that other context. And again, it does try to take these Christian stories and try to represent them in a way that gives itself cachet and gives itself the appearance of authority, but its purpose has to be understood. Its purpose is to represent itself as knowing of what true Christian doctrine is. The true Christian doctrine can be found here. We're saying it accurately. The real Nasara, they don't believe that Jesus is God. Jesus never said that. It doesn't say that in your Injil. That's what he's saying. All right. Similarly, beyond the range of Syriacisms, that's really odd to say. I'm not sure whether or not that's a K or a C sound whenever it's in that phrase.
I would make it a K, but that's just me. I have no idea what's
Syriacisms. That's really weird. Syriacisms, so properly called, genuinely Christian, even biblical lore, no doubt retold in Arabic from Syriac originals for the benefit of Arabic-speaking Christians, is sometimes deployed in the Quran for the purpose of purchasing credibility for the Quran's own teachings among the Arabic-speaking Christian members of its audience, mainly the slaves. The only people who were Christian were slaves taken as children, and they weren't educated people. So
this is a
that's
sin apologist.
That is how it's being used.
Stuff to gain credibility. She's a sin apologist.
Yeah. So she's right in this, that what they're doing is they're trying to borrow from, there is a conscious borrowing, but it's not because it's speaking from inside of this, but because it's trying to borrow it into the outside, from the outside into justify itself, to give itself credibility. So anyway, and this one she's saying is relevant to things like sleepers in the sleepers in the cave, the seven sleepers of Ephesus. This would be the seven sleepers of Ephesus, and she gives a couple of other examples of other things.
She has a strong apologetic reason for saying that.
So in this context, the study of Syriac prolegomena, and that's like the preliminary stuff for it. Here she means like the precursors, the Syriac precursors for any given passage, and the Quran's narrative is the study of the Syriac text, which presumably, in all historical likelihood, lies behind the oral Arabic version of the recital to which the Quran alludes or refers, with an assumption of its familiarity to the Quran's own audience.
Mm-hmm.
So,
all right. So I got a couple things to address here real quick. So Tyler Sweet said, no cut, stream ruined. Yeah, Artemis got down from her little spot, and she got in my lap, and then she went back up. Artemis got out of her place. So I said, place, Artemis, place. I reached for my sins, and then she magically went back into place.
Oh, goodness.
Anyway, it was kind of actually really strange that she went down and back up, but that is in fact what happened. So Artemis left for like 10 seconds and then came right back, and Cargo Crew has joined. Whoa, when did this live start? Shortly after 1 o'clock.
Yep.
2.5 hours ago. You're not in Eastern time zone. I strongly encourage you to watch this through. This is a genuine question for you, which you won't be able to answer live. You'll have to answer later if you watch it through. After seeing this, do you still respect Mel?
Yeah. Do you still respect Mel after seeing this? Go back to the beginning. So Mel still thinks that this is a summation. Sorry, the quality of this is absolute garbage, but I will read it to you. I had to read through this thing. That's why I didn't read the whole thing, because my eyes were just giving up. As mentioned in the beginning, there's a danger.
To be clear, what Mary means is the scan is of poor quality.
Actually, excuse me. Sorry, this was actually Sidney Griffiths. That's the funny thing. I'm sorry. This is Sidney Griffiths before. It really was in the right place. The things about the hermeneutical danger is the first guy that he's trying to claim. Sorry, they have very, very similar views, and so I thought I had maybe just placed them wrong.
Shame on
I
you.
destroyed everything.
How are we supposed to take you seriously when you're misattributing these works to the wrong people?
But no, this is Sidney Griffith's point of view with this one, which is extremely similar to hers, which is
apparently Sidney Griffith also gives Mel a sick burn. Then
yes, he does. Yes,
Angelica does too, though. So it was very consistent with what Angelica wrote. So I was
So you
assuming it was a legit quote, because I only read like a few paragraphs. Mary read like half the book.
Yeah. So is it a summation? So again, Mel thinks that this guy that he's getting good summations.
Well,
and that this is supporting his point of view.
A legit quote, I'm sure.
Yeah, the fake quote. And then all of the stuff that is like directly against Mel's position. Here is what Angelica says. Dangerous associations between Christian and Quranic traditions. As mentioned in the beginning, there is a danger in current scholarship of associating the Quran too closely with the Christian tradition that surrounded it. Since such traditions reappeared as powerful narratives soon after the emergence of the Quran and exerted a strong influence on Umayyad culture, the Quran's idiosyncrasy, its own reformation of prevailing ways of thinking, are easily overlooked or cautiously excluded from scholarly analyses. So she's already saying, quit reading it through a Christian lens.
Is dangerous, according to the person he quotes in support of him. Because he didn't read the source. He has no clue what she actually says.
Yep.
She says the kind of nonsense he engages in are actually dangerous. Like a much milder form of the kind of nonsense that Mel engages in is dangerous because it makes you turn your brain off.
And as for the whole idea that, oh, well, she's saying it's steeped in this. So Christian expressions of piety mirrored in its diction and imagery. No, she says already the Quran's rhetoric and conceptual lexicon should suffice to prove that the Quran did not simply, as Peter Brown claims for early Islamic culture per se, develop under the umbrella of late anti-Christian culture, merely slipping on the guise of Christian models. She rebukes that. The opposite. They both have the opposite views of what's being attributed to them. And then here I just went to the text generation because it was so hard to clip and so hard to read. As this first chapter shows, Western scholarship has paid little attention to the Arab environment of the Quran. The desideratum. This desideratum, that means a thing that you want. This desideratum is taken up in an article, which will now appear as a separate volume, that specifically examines the relationship between the Jahili culture and the Quran. Thanks to more recent archaeological findings, particularly epigraphic material, the era has become considerably more transparent to us today. And I agree, the epigraphic materials have been incredible. So here she is talking about the epigraphic material that, guess who rejects it? Mel rejects it, and also the Arab culture that he thinks is irrelevant.
Pause again here. So cargo crew, he just got here. He's probably just reading the title of the stream. He says, very sinister typecasting, calling us mythicists. We need some realignment here. It's a neutral academic term for your position.
You're a mythicist.
If you want to criticize my title, criticize me calling you believing in fraud and hallucination. Why in the world would you go after the word mythism in the title? That's the least offensive part of the title in reality. You prefer I call you a conspiracy theorist? That would also be an accurate description of your position. You're just so afraid of the word myth that you think it's an insult?
Yep.
I mean, you believe Muhammad was a myth. You're a mythist. It's not an insult. I did insult your position, or more specifically, I insulted Mel, calling him a fraudster, someone who believes in hallucination and that there is dark truth to what he's doing, or there's a dark motive behind what he's doing, but not mythism. That's the most neutral term in the whole thing. My goodness.
Yep. All right. So it presents stories known, and then she says in another place, that the Quran presents stories known from biblical literature as messages from the transcendent scripture, al-Kitab, which is taken to be a corpus ranking above all other sources of stories known throughout oral tradition, thus being of the highest authority. The development of the narrative did not, however, remain unaffected by community demands emerging in Middle Meccan times when opponents of the new faith questioned why the Quran had not been revealed to Muhammad all at once, the way the scriptures of other religious communities had. It is in this context that the debate stemming from such challenges that the immense advantage of the gradual revelation becomes clear. The open-ended nature of the orally presented text allows for its continuous updating, a kind of targuminization, a process which seems to be implied by the often used word of tasil, exposition, elucidation, to describe the particular communication of the surahs. Quranic narratives then need to be understood as a constantly responding to the ever-progressing theological insights of the community, aka Muhammad made it up and altered it as he went along in response to what people were saying. It is very clearly as a text, not something that was written down in a coherent manner by a group of people all at once and then presented. It was made up. The stories change. The stories are revised. He changes his answers. He alters things. And this is very clear in the development of the book, something that Mel cannot have be true. Neither can any of the mythicists. She continues, an important criterion of distinction between the earlier and later surahs is, as Quranic scholarship in the tradition of Theodor Noldeke has always held, their literary form and linguistic guise. This applies also to the identification of later editions, recognizable by their often prosaic form and by discourses that breach the theological context of the nuclear text. So, aka, he stops being poetic and just puts in an info dump or discourses that breach the theological context of the nuclear text. otherwise non sequiturs, things that are just thrust into the middle of things and make a lot less sense. The studies presented here view textual additions as a sign of intratextual dynamics, and I by no means see it as a defect that would have to be amended by their elimination from the surahs in which they appear. And again, their intertextual dynamics is inherent to what Muhammad presented it as. In my view, it would be extremely defective. Rather, the studies read them as a sort of interpretive, targumic expansion, which was necessary for updating the earlier communication of the nuclear text and aligning it with the level of knowledge and theological awareness reached by the community at a later time. Otherwise, later on, he needed better answers. The freedom to practice this kind of updating was part of the parcel of the particular mode of revelation that was sent down, not as a single complete pronouncement, but in stages a little at a time. I agree, because Muhammad was making it up as he went along. He could change things. This trait characterizes the Quran as having been primarily an oral scripture, the charter of a persistent divine human communication, aka Allah was also making it up as he went along. So as we go on, you can see her view again.
As
she
we
says
can
it much
go
nicer
on,
than
we
I
can
do.
see Mary had to use tinier and tinier type.
Yeah, well, we're almost done with her stuff. I'll just skip this one, but this one talks about basically there's not an author in the conventional sense, but rather the Quran was created together between the conversation between Muhammad and his audience, aka it's very obvious that the objections of listeners shaped what the Quran was and his conversations with them and the situations that they were in. The community was a co-author, aka not from Allah, by the way. Anyway, she goes to talk about kind of the first mythicist figure, and she flatly states that Waynesboro's dating of the Quran to the post-Muhammadan period is an unsupported verdict rather than the result of actual research. Critics not only accuse, and then so she burns, and then another mythicist, this is Lulling, she says, critics, among whom she is one, not only accuse Lulling of forging a conspiracy theory, i.e. the fact that the transmitted Quran
a conspiracy theory. I should change the title of this since mythism's bad. The dark truth behind Muhammad conspiracy theorists, I think, is what I need to retitle it. Because Cargo is still going on about how offended he is that his position is being described neutrally and accurately as that of
Cargo,
a mythist.
You have absolutely no critical thinking whatsoever, or you would have left this a long time ago. You would have left this so long ago. So again, critics not only accuse Lulling of forging a conspiracy theory, i.e., the fact of the transmitted Quran being falsified had been kept a secret by Islamic scholars. So Islamic scholars knew it's a big secret, it's falsified, but also of circular reasoning, i.e. the attempt to recover the authentic Quran through an interpretation influenced by his own preconceptions. Who does that? Oh yeah, all the mythicists. Even more seriously problematic, however, is the author's hermeneutical outlook. The parameter by which Lulling measured the Quran's genuineness is that is by how closely the texts resemble Christian hymns. The allegedly authentic parts of the Quran showing similarities to hymns and the falsified parts diverging from them. So if this sounds kind of Christian, then it's authentic. If it doesn't, then it's falsified. That's just stupid and circular reasoning, she says. That implies that he recognized genuine religious self-expression in Christianity exclusively. Otherwise, you couldn't possibly have something that expressed anything other than this proto-Christian thing because nothing else existed then.
Let me just remind everyone, this is the source that Mel quoted to support his position. And obviously she's not talking about Mel, but you take out the word Lulling and you put in Mel, and it will 100% apply.
Yep. So, and then later she says, despite the translation of their works in English, Lulling, sorry, there's some typo issues with OCR, and Luxemburg's hypotheses of the preexistence of the Quranic text in a Christian form have not found general support. The scholars have been criticized for taking a simplistic approach to the traditions of late antiquity of only paying attention to the Quranic text selectively, for it enters their vision only as a written Christian Islamic palimpsest.
Mm-hmm.
And then
and
Mel,
that is like the most possible charitable interpretation of Mel's position, because again, he takes these people who are discredited. Mary and I have been saying this over and over again. I knew that many scholars had written things like this, but I didn't feel the need to go and quote mine. But now Mel tells us to read this source, so we do. And what do I find? A real credible historian working in the area says exactly what we've been saying that people who are actually respected in this field say. It's like we're not making this up. You know, we're not appealing to their authority. But then Mel goes worse. He takes their already discredited ideas and he put them 10 steps further. And then Jay takes Mel's garbage that's already 10 steps removed from already discredited academic work, and he distorts it further. And then you get all these clowns coming into the chat, coming onto my channel, calling me a liar, telling me that I'm out to get money, that I'm trying to make a name for myself, that I am a grave sinner who needs to repent for attacking the beloved God and prophet Jay Smith.
Yep.
And it's just like, what the heck is wrong with you people? Jay Smith has a PhD, not in linguistics, and he has done zero of the work. Zero. The only work Jay has done is take the hearsay of Mel, combine it with the hearsay of his other sources, and craft a story in his mind and then tell a very nice story to his audience. He's a very talented storyteller, but that is what he is, a storyteller. He is not a researcher. He says he's not a researcher. He is not an academic. He says he's not an academic. And these people come in here and without the slightest clue what any of these sources say, the slightest clue how ridiculous Jay's position is, tell me that I am a horrible monster because I have sought fame, which has hurt my channel.
Yep.
I have lost subscribers. I've lost financial supporters over this, but no, I'm a horrible sinner. Out for money.
Yep. So anyway, now after this, after now citing how many people, what was it? 4, 3 of which were AI hallucinations, to supposedly have the idea that Syriac influences the Quran and there are Syriac words in it. Therefore, somehow we should totally believe that Muhammad is Mahmud or Mahmud. After all of that, which has done nothing for his position, he then goes into this weird thing where he wants to know the pronunciation of the what we write as H in English or CH in Mahmud. How is it pronounced? And then he does not understand the words velar fricative or uvular fricative. He can't even pronounce uvular, but he is trying to tell us that he's pronouncing it correctly. No, you're not, Mel. You're saying Mahmed. And
you don't got the freaking vowel right.
No, he doesn't even have the second vowel right. And he's not saying it as a fricative at all. He's saying it as a K. So yes, it would be Mahmad in Hebrew, and you're not saying it right. But anyway, he suddenly goes to the idea, to this source here. Did I copy? Oh, I didn't copy the actual one. But there is an AI one that is not. Oh, here it is. Here it is.
Oh.
Right here. So
we won't do a survey on this one,
sorry,
but 86% new worth was AI.
Yep. And we're not going to do one on this one because I kind of already blew it because it's right here. But he finally got one from AI that was not, in fact, a hallucination. The only AI quote that is not a hallucination, we finally get. Here we go. And he gets caught up on the 10th and 11th century transcription of how the Bible was read aloud by Karaite Karaite Jews who were in the Arab world now, because the Arabs have conquered everything, and now the major language, written language of the area is Arabic. So they were using the Arabic letters that they already knew how to pronounce and were creating transcriptions of biblical text into Arabic. And Mel is super, super excited by this. He wants everybody to know. And what I thought was really funny here, he says that the transcriptions reflect in principle these oral traditions. It's for this reason that the transcription of the Hebrew Bible represents the kere, orally transmitted reading of the text, rather than the kativ, or kativ, I don't know how it's pronounced, the written tradition. So basically, what they're doing is they're...
hold on, Mary.
Yeah.
Hold on, Mary. I just need to make sure I'm not misunderstanding you. Mel is arguing that a 10th or 11th century tradition of how to pronounce Hebrew is a great piece of evidence of how it was pronounced when it was written 2,000 years prior.
No, what he's trying to argue that it is, if you can say that MHMD would have been written by these people in the same way that it's written in Arabic, then it was totally Mahmad, and it was never Muhammad.
So the pronunciation thing was totally irrelevant then?
He's trying to connect it back to his original claim about it not being a U. So if there's no U...
But what... If it's just consonants, that doesn't tell you anything about what the vowel would be.
Well, by the time they're writing, there actually is, there are the vowel marks at this point. So he's trying to say...
yeah, okay, that's fine. So
he's trying to say...
But do they vowel mark it as a U?
No. They're going to...
I don't understand. I don't understand the argument.
Stop. So his argument is that it was never... that if it is Muhammad in the Quran, right, then it would have been written with with a U anytime early people heard it. And because it's often written with an A, it definitely wasn't Muhammad.
Okay, but these people aren't talking... Unless I misunderstood, they're not talking about Muhammad. So how is them transcribing the Bible relevant to this discussion?
Stop. So he is trying to build the case that it does reflect their markings on... He does it really badly, but it does reflect their markings for Mahmadim and Song of Solomon. That's what he's going to try to claim. That because Mahmadim is going to have an A, that proves that it was an A, and then you got the consonants.
But, I mean, no one denies it's an A. What is the point of this? I don't get it. No one suggests that the Hebrew word is not spelled with an A.
There is no point to it. He doesn't understand that he doesn't understand Semitic languages, so he doesn't know that the trilateral root is the same thing anyway. So he doesn't know that nobody's arguing that it wouldn't be written with the same consonants. He doesn't understand that. But what's fun, so he's going...
So this argument is equivalent...
Oh, it gets worse, though.
No, hold on.
Yeah.
Like we provided a couple examples of languages that have M and L as the only consonants in a word. This argument is the equivalent of saying, yes, in those languages, it does actually use the vowel that everyone has always said it uses. Therefore, I'm right. And Mel doesn't exist as a person. Like, so he went in this thing, right, about, well, what kind of fricative is it? I mean, who cares? That no one ever debated that. That
Well,
had nothing to
he's
do with.
butthurt because I was making fun of his pronunciation of Mahmed, which he still usually pronounces wrong.
But the reason we made fun of it is because he says med. It has nothing to do with the hak sound.
Well, he also says Mahmed with a regular K all the time. He never says Mahmed.
Yeah, but the reason
Mahmed.
I said it was
Yeah.
not, I said it was ridiculous, and I actually said it about Jay,
Yeah.
not Mel, but either way, was because it was an E instead of an A, and they wanted to be an A, and it is an A. So like, it's just sloppiness.
And then Mel gets super confused. I think he actually looked at the source. He looked up a source. I know that's crazy, right? Maybe like, which blew my mind that he actually checked a source, but then he thought he got this really good information that Dead Sea Scrolls in the Samaritan tradition had a weakening of some pharyngeals. And he thought that this somehow informed the Aramaic and or Greek renditions of the name, but it doesn't. That's completely ridiculous. No, in Greek, it's spelled with an H. There is an H there because it has two A's. Anytime it has an A, it has an H. So it is a 3-syllable word, Mahamed, whenever it has two A's together. It's Mahamet. Whenever it has two A's together, and he just gets confused by the two languages. He's like, this is in fact what occurs in instances of Muhammad in Greek. It's a different language that doesn't have an H. Greek doesn't have an H, so they're not going to have an H because the Greek doesn't have an H. And the Syriac always has the H.
There is no H in Greek.
Yes, there's no H in Greek. So he's just massively confused. He's simultaneously.
Why is this an argument? They don't write the H in Greek. Yeah, they don't have that letter. It doesn't exist. They can't write something that doesn't exist.
Oh, my goodness. So, again.
Oh, my gosh.
Mel is simultaneously arguing that Mahmed would have, or Mahmad would have a ha or a ha in Arabic from Hebrew speakers, and also it would be left out, so it wouldn't have a ha at all. It doesn't exist. So it both exists and doesn't exist. This is Schrodinger's ha that sometimes exists and sometimes doesn't. No, it's because it's Greek. Mel, you have to learn the basics of these languages before you talk about this. And so then he gets all excited about, let's see how the Karaites rendered Song of Songs 5:16. Guess what he asked to do this? He asked AI, and AI makes things up. It makes things up. So here it's giving, was it getting? It's just giving the Hebrew and the Hebrew transliteration that it pulled from somewhere, possibly like it pulled this from somewhere. It has nothing to do with the Karaites. Absolutely nothing. And then here it gets better.
Oh my God. No, it can't get better. My brain's already broken.
In the source that he's claiming that this is from, the only place where it actually has Arabic doesn't even have the correct word. It has the first word. His mouth is sweetness. It has the word sweetness instead. So it does not have that at all. It's not the correct word. And then he says that here's the Arabic letters corresponding roughly to this. This is AI making up Arabic letters that it thinks would be like, this is not an Arabic transliteration. It's not from Jeffrey Kahn's reconstruction. This is all just a lie. This is all made up. Look here in this passage right here. There are still some
that oh my gosh.
Do you see the Hebrew letters?
Oh yeah, I do.
There are Hebrew letters in here still because this is just AI garbage.
Well, the apostrophe I guess could go either way, but at least two.
Yeah, there are a bunch of
Hebrew
things that
letters.
are just like there are things that are shoved in there that are not even the correct alphabet, and he didn't notice. And he says the het was pronounced with a deep ha sound. But was it pronounced like Muhammad? I don't know. No, it wasn't, because guess what? It's still Hebrew. This is a transliteration. When you use it for alphabet, it doesn't change the language. It was pronounced like Mahmadim or Mohammedim.
No, you're just wrong, Mary. See, to learn how to pronounce English, don't you remember in school where they showed us transliterations of English into Arabic, and that's how we learned how to pronounce English?
That's like saying, I mean, it's like saying that
it's equivalent. It's equivalent to what I just said is equivalent to what Mel said.
It makes absolutely no sense. It would be like saying
that you know how the Hebrew is pronounced because of a transliteration, which is a made-up transliteration. But even if it was a real transliteration, you don't determine how Hebrew is pronounced by a transliteration into Arabic. You don't determine how any language is pronounced based on a transliteration. A transliteration is an attempt to capture the sounds of that language in another language and is never completely accurate.
In this case, what they were doing is they were capturing their reading tradition. So they were capturing their local dialect in the
it had nothing to do with freaking Muhammad anyway.
Yeah, the 10th, the 9th and 10th century, which is not these previous centuries. And it's not anything even up in debate. It doesn't help him at all. But he's wanting this because he doesn't understand how Semitic languages work. He doesn't understand anything works. But he's really obsessed with the ooh because it doesn't have an ooh, right? No, it's pronounced more like Mahmad or even Muhammad. No, it was not pronounced Muhammad. That's not a Hebrew word pattern. Muhammad is not a way that you pronounce anything. And then he's obsessed with the ooh, not Muhammad. Well, guess what? It's not Muhammad in Arabic either. This is just like me. Look, I'm doing my transliteration from Greek to Russian, and then I just leave in some Greek things and not notice. That's the equivalent of what he did. He did not notice that his AI was making things up. This is not Karaite. This is made up garbage. Khan doesn't
the miracle of transliteration.
Yeah, and Khan doesn't have this word at all in any of the. He has it only in the Hebrew. He doesn't have it anywhere in the Greek for the Tiberian pronunciation. It's not rendered by Karaites. Has absolutely nothing to do with it. Anyway.
And yeah, as our Kitsune pointed out, Mary and I are not, we don't have PhDs in philology, which obviously isn't a thing ever, but, that's what Mel claimed that Kerr has. And thus, we can't tell you that it's the wrong script.
And then again, look at this. Arabic letters look at that. This is all made up. It's not even all Arabic letters, and he didn't even notice this really short section that half of it's still in Hebrew. And again, he doesn't know that this is a plural form. He doesn't know where that extra A came from, so he's extra confused.
Wait. Sorry. Can you go back? Mm-hmm. What is on the screen? Is this a screenshot?
It's more of his AI garbage.
No, but is this a screenshot from Mel?
Yes.
So he quotes the word, which has probably 3 Hebrew letters, and it's a little small, but I think 3 Arabic letters.
Yes, 3 Arabic letters.
And says, this is MHMDYM. In Arabic? In Arabic. He says it's Arabic.
Yes. He's saying it's Arabic because he doesn't realize it actually is MHM. There you go in the Arabic part, but the rest isn't even Arabic. So yes, it looks identical to the Arabic Mohammedim. That's not Arabic. Mohammedim is not Arabic. He's like asking questions, and this AI doesn't even know what he's saying.
Oh, I mean, he literally just copied and pasted the AI, right?
No,
that formatting is the AI formatting, and then it's saying, so yes. It looks right. That's exactly the way AI responds. So I can even almost tell you exactly what the question Mel asked was.
But
he put in some garbage, and then he says, "Does this look like Arabic Muhammad or Mohammedim?" And then it says, "Yes, it looks like Arabic. It looks identical to Arabic Mohammedim."
But Mohammedim is not an Arabic word,
and it's not Arabic.
No. The whole thing. I mean,
what do you mean this half Hebrew, half Arabic characters looks identical to Arabic non-existent word?
I like
What
that.
the heck? What the heck?
And he
You
doesn't
cannot
know-
be this stupid. AI hallucinating a quote. I can at least understand how you can be that stupid. How can you possibly be so stupid, so clueless about the subject that you lecture others on not being able to talk about, that you can't see the letters are the wrong script and ask AI if it means something, and then it's fine.
Yeah, and again, he doesn't even know that the eem is not a feature of Arabic. He doesn't know that that's not how you do plurals. So, and then he asks, how do you know that it's Muhammadim, not Muhammadim? I mean, it's just like, and then guess what? Everybody, are these AI hallucinations? Yes, they are. They are AI hallucinations.
I mean, we can see the freaking question he asked the AI based on the way it answers. He didn't even bother trying to hide it.
And just very quickly, guess what? Of course, there is no Karaite transcription. Writes this is this, representing Hebrew. This does not exist. Jeffrey Kahn never said this. Of course he didn't say this. This isn't even Arabic.
Look, the AI thing tells you it's the Hebrew letters at the start. Look, they're identical. You use your eyes, you freaking idiot.
I know. The vowels are, well, I mean, the vowels are Hebrew. Well, here it says that the vowels are Hebrew, are like inserted in, is what it's kind of saying. And Nadia Vidro, does she say that? No, of course not. No one says that the Karaite text, and what would that have to do with anything? Why on earth would you think that people writing the way that you pronounce it in, Mel's so stupid that he got lost in his own question. Why would he ever think that people would be writing Mohammed in their pronunciation of the Bible? So very quickly.
Yes, I forgot, Mary. Yeah. How dare you bring this up? This is their transliteration of the Bible. It has nothing to do with Muhammad.
So anyway, the first one, this article doesn't even exist. What is on page 85 is this one: Gender Domesticity in the Life of the Prophet Tawfiq al-Hakim's Muhammad. So that has nothing to do. It's not by Jeffrey Kahn. All it would take him is 5 seconds to figure that out. Nadia Vidrio, this is the only things that she published in 2011. This is her thesis, Verbal Morphology in the Medieval Karaite Treatise on Hebrew Grammar. And this is her PhD thesis. And of course, it has absolutely nothing at all to do with anything to do with that. Nobody would think that they're writing Mohammed instead of Muhammadim or Mahmadim, and the pronunciation difference is whether or not it's an older pronunciation or a newer pronunciation. The older pronunciation is actually Muhammadim. But anyway, her entire thesis does not contain the word song or canticles. So she did not talk about Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, or Song of Songs, Song of Solomon, or canticles anytime at all, whatever. I have to leave very quickly, but I want to finish this up, so just let me run through so my kids aren't late. So he says that he quotes the key thing: while an Arabic reader might see Mohammed, the intended Hebrew word is not that, and the meaning is lovely desirable as it carries over the Hebrew vowelization. No, the entire thing is how to pronounce Hebrew with it written in Arabic. It's just like whenever we write, what is it called? Greek, we can write with the Latin letters. Nobody gets confused about what it's actually saying. Then he just goes to this insane Georgian text, which he's just lying about too. I think that this just came from AI. AI claims that it has Muhammad spelled differently. Would not help him at all. The early text, the only places that it's published in where it's in any way that you can copy and paste it, or that AI can actually understand it. By the way, this is AI telling me the truth, saying that it's not represented in the search results. It doesn't exist. So AI tells me that you cannot find it and the spelling would be in the Georgian alphabet, not in the Latin alphabet. Whatever, because I was just looking to see if there's any actual.
How dare you use AI, Barry? It's evil.
So
That's our whole argument is it's evil to use AI.
The original Georgian manuscript cannot be found in a text readable format. I don't have a deep understanding of medieval.
Yeah, the AI has no clue. I'm sure it's not even in its database.
Either. What's really funny?
It just made it up. Right.
Yeah, I've got to go in just 1 second, but let me read this because it's hilarious. In those days, and this is what it actually says about Muhammad, that he's trying to go to and say that this is going to call him Muhammad, and it's going to all be about Jesus. In those days, Muhammad, and in this source, this is a machine translation of the Georgian that writes it out, Muhammad, by the way. Anyway, on those days, Muhammad, a descendant of Ishmael, the leader of the Sargonite sect, that's the Saracens, appeared, and he conquered all of Arabia and Yemen. And he died, and Abu Bakr succeeded him and entered Persia. For among them was Heraclius, king of Persia, and he divided Persia. There was no one who had risen before Persia. This Abu Bakr, the Agarian, conquered Persia, entered Baghdad, and with great force abolished the fire services. I don't even know what the original would be. Again, the machine translation of the majority, and converted them. The fire services, the Zoroastrianism, and converted them to Sargonite, the new faith of the Saracens. And he died, and Omar succeeded him and became much stronger. So that is basically, he's trying to go to this thing that portrays Muhammad as, Muhammad, and claim that it was spelled a particular way. I don't think he has any reason to. I don't think anyone has spoken about what the spelling of this is, nor do I think that it is actually from the 7th century. I think it's later because Baghdad is here, and Baghdad didn't actually exist yet. Anyway, there are others, but it very clearly portrays him as, a warlord. So Mel's conclusion, the argument that Muhammad is used as a Hebrew word, even if written in Arabic script, is supported by how it is rendered in nearby languages and how the Karaites rendered it. No, it's not. It's not used as a Hebrew word. There is no support for it being a Hebrew word in the Quran anywhere at all. The Karaites were writing everything using the Hebrew alphabet. It's not supported. That's pathetic. It's ignorant. It's stupid. And AI managed to give you one actual thing. Everything else was a hallucination. All right, I gotta go or my kids will be late. I will listen to the rest on my phone. I actually do have the correct headset, so I will be able to call in about 5 minutes. Bye. Catch you guys.
Bye, Mary. Bye. I already removed you from the stream. It took a second for Mary to hang up. I don't know if you heard or not, but she said, "I won't hang up." So Cargo Crew, we only ask questions now. We learn from Mel's openness that we have to be very strategic and cunning. No, you have to be honest. And why should we answer any question we only ask? Because you supposedly care about truth. You're just admitting it's a game by saying we're not going to answer any questions. You're just admitting it's a game. It's a game to you. You want to play a little game. You want to play skeptic. You want to be like the dumbass atheists who are like, God doesn't exist. Prove it to me. Sure. Right after you prove that you exist. That's not valid. You have to prove it. I guess first. Blah, blah, blah. You just come in here, you ask a bunch of irrelevant, stupid questions as we're exposing that your little God and Savior Mel is a complete and total fraud. And you don't care. You don't care that Mel is a complete and total fraud using fake, made-up garbage. But he sounds so smart. I like him. Very good point by Zoe. Cargo, proper discussions are not one-sided. Just asking questions without listening or even responding to counter questions leads to a dead end. Yeah, I'm not playing your game, Cargo Crew. If you're not going to engage with the material, then I am not going to engage with you. I have no obligation to answer any stupid question you have. And although you have been a financial supporter of the channel, although you are a longtime viewer, I have no problem timing you out if you are just going to come and try to distract. A mindless, pathetic spam robot can do the same thing. Engage with the stream on topic or get lost. I do not care. And I'll take this since Cargo said, well, I won't marry debate James Valent. I don't actually know who that is, but he, which is what, Mel, has been talking with James Valent, who thinks Christianity was invented by Roman emperors, not the brightest bulb. We started with, I don't still have it shared, but I'm going to go ahead and reshare it because it is suddenly highly irrelevant again. We started with this post by Mel, and he says, because of us sin apologists, he's going to start being so afraid of the historicity of Christianity, Mel's going to start looking into it. And I said, he will come to the conclusion that Christianity was invented by Roman emperors using his strategy. And apparently, it's going to be a lot easier for him if he's already talking to crackpots who think this. Mel is going to be out of Christianity by the end of the year. I'm calling it. If he has the slightest bit of consistency, he will be out of Christianity. He'll say that just like Islam, Christianity was a conspiracy invented by powerful people hundreds of years later, because every single methodology he has applied to Christianity or literally anything else will lead to the same conclusion, because his methodology is, I assume there is a conspiracy, and any evidence against the conspiracy is just proof that the conspiracists were very good. You can never get to truth that way. Right, Mary? I don't actually hear you.
Yes, I agree. I am listening, and I absolutely agree. Sorry, just talking to my kid.
No worries. And some jerk. Okay, whatever. Mel never mentioned James Valent. So Cargo Crew will believe it. Fine, but Cargo's not a Christian anyway. When someone said he, I assumed it was Mel. Maybe it was you. If Mel is not talking to James Valent, great. However, if he is consistent and does apply, so I'm going to take back calling he'll be out of Christianity by the end of the year, because I actually don't think he'll be put in enough effort to actually become familiar with Mythist arguments against Christianity. I know them. I'm going to strategically not say anything.
Yeah.
Because Mel will probably watch this stream and he might absorb the arguments that Mythists make against Christianity. But trust me, they are basically the same arguments that Mel makes for the origins of Islam.
Yeah, they really are. They are extremely similar.
All right, let me take a couple comments. First, a super chat from Allah, son of morning.
And Allah will bless you in a million ways. You find the tree will grow and you will have lots and lots of wealth. This is the example that we gave to the children. And I'm letting you know that when you sow that seed by giving, you shall receive much more than you gave by the will of Allah. Give as much as you can, for indeed you will reap much more than you have sown.
Lots more coming your way, Allah, by the grace of Allah, I think. Appreciate the work you guys do. Appreciate the support. So this is what started that whole James Valent thing. Cargo earlier said, Mary, why don't you debate with James Valent? So she should debate a anti-Christian Jesus mythist because you're infatuated with Muhammad mythism. James Valent is at least 20 points better than me. I have no clue who this guy is, but if he's a mythist, he is an idiot. if he's a Jesus mythist, he is completely and totally clueless. And no offense, cargo crew, but you are the last person in the world I would trust to judge someone's intelligence. Because the Jesus mythist argue, if he believes that Roman emperors created Christianity, as you or someone else said, and you think he is making intelligent arguments, I am just beyond words at how stupid you have to be to think he is intelligent. I'm sorry. Oh, the emojis are broken. Oh, well, I guess I didn't get everything fixed. That was fixed last time, so I didn't look at that again when I was doing the test. I'll get the emojis fixed again. Sorry about that. Has cargo been wrong on every point? Yes. Quran OnlyFans says, just caught up or joining late at 3x speed. Just one question. Who the hell is Mel? Mel runs a channel called Islamic Origins. Jay Smith describes him as his best researcher, his single best source of information, according to Jay Smith. They recently possibly had a falling out. I don't know any of the facts about that. I don't know if Mel, if it was just a little temper tantrum and Mel's back to helping Jay, or they really broke up. But historically, most of Jay's insane arguments have come from Mel. His own channel, I mean, it has a modest number of subscribers, gets a modest number of views. You know, I'm not trying to degrade him. I'm just trying to explain who he is. We wouldn't probably respond to him if he didn't have Jay's ear. And, you know, a number of people have said here and elsewhere, you know, why don't you just drop this? Apparently someone asked Mel the same question, and he said, we should just agree to disagree. The only reason this video exists today is because Mel decided to attack us. So
yep, it's the AI. It is literally that he cannot stop with terrible arguments that can't be supported from anything except AI. So he uses AI to fabricate things. And he whines in there, people give me a hard time. The part where he gives the AI transliteration, where it doesn't even transliterate it all the way into Arabic, that it fails and leaves some Hebrew letters and things. He thinks that this is the original from the Karaite. He thinks that this is coming from something. It's not. It's just hallucinating things. And he doesn't have the two brain cells that it takes to realize that this is hallucinated. I think that it's really useful to do this AI translation. No, you had it make things up.
Well, he is almost certainly asking AI for quote unquote translations of things that aren't in its database. It's highly improbable that they fed these very obscure ancient works into the AI learning. So it doesn't even have the text, let alone all the other problems with AI. Yeah. Houston's correct here, I think, actually. Great point. Best researcher equals finds things no one else can. And that's why Jay thinks Mel's the best researcher, because he comes up with insane, moronic things. And the reason no one else can find them is because they don't exist in reality.
So he had AI do tons of things. Only one thing was not a hallucination. And that one didn't help him anyway, because nobody disagreed about how you would write a word that is a Hebrew word using Arabic letters. There was no point of disagreement on that. Like, that was not a debate. Nobody's talking about that. Nobody cares about that. But somehow he thinks that it's going to help him, and it doesn't.
Yeah, because someone transliterated the biblical text, and Mel got an AI to reconstruct that transliteration, and it didn't even complete the transliteration.
Well, it didn't do it because you would have to go to the Karaites doing it. Like, it didn't do it at all.
It had no clue, right? I mean, in reality, of course, it had, right? He probably asked it, how did the Karaites transliterate this or something? And it's probably like, fuck if I know, but I'm an AI. I'm going to answer you anyway. Yes, you are 100% correct, master.
Yes. And the thing is, it doesn't have the Karaite in the database. The Karaite text,
I'm sure it doesn't. Why
is
would it?
in Arabic, like the Arabic letters, the Arabic script in the Hebrew language in Arabic letters. Just like I can write Hebrew out in Latin letters, they wrote it out in Arabic letters. You can do that. They did that. It should be a clue for you that it starts out with Hebrew, written in Hebrew letters, rather than Hebrew written in that the script is Hebrew, that it's not doing what you think it's doing. But it doesn't help him. Like, he does not have, like, it is frightening to me that this man is in charge of children's education. It is terrifying.
Yeah, it really is.
But I found it funny, the fact that I wasn't even asking, I was just searching for it, and it just happened to pop up in the AI chat GPT text box saying that this does not exist in it hasn't been transcribed. It doesn't exist in the Georgian stuff. I thought it was funny that it popped up, and that's why I clicked it, because if he had 2 brain cells and he was Googling stuff, he would have found it saying, I can't give you this answer, because the AI will do that sometimes at the top of the search box.
It's not the default, but it will sometimes tell you that, this doesn't exist. It just has a strong bias to telling you that it exists. Right?
Yep,
so I bet I would not be the least bit surprised if Mel got answers like that. And he's like, no, try harder.
Yep. Lie to me.
So we got a few more comments here, stuff coming in. Yeah, our Kitsune, I'm gonna go apologize to Artemis after this. I freaked her out and she ran away. The non-existent shot collar didn't keep her in place this time. Yeah, Jack, you're right. I shouldn't have said no offense, because that was definitely quite offensive, but it was also completely true. And I've just had enough of this game, right? Gargoku is taking off the mask. He's just flat out admitting that he's playing a game here. He's only going to ask questions because every time they put out a proposition, it's destroyed. So they're not going to put out any more propositions. He's admitted that we've been correct on everything we've critiqued on, right? He says, Mary, you're very good at offense, but what about defense?
Oh my goodness.
You realize that everything Mary's responding to is Mel's offensive propositions. So
yes,
it is in a sense defense. Just because you can put out different questions than Mel doesn't mean that we've been on the offensive. But by all means, Cargo, maybe I'll do a stream just for you, and you can ask every one of your idiotic questions. Why is Jesus mentioned 1,000 times in the Quran, but Muhammad only 4? This is the proof that Muhammad is a myth, as he said earlier in this chat to try to distract us.
And that is so stupid, because of course Muhammad's standing there. He is borrowing the authority of the Bible. So he's telling stories from the Bible. He's telling people why they should believe in him. He's standing there. Why would he be telling stories about himself that everybody else is with? Like, Muhammad shall go to Medina. No, that's not the kind of text it is. It makes no sense.
Yeah, you're going to outsmart me, Cargo. You're going to outsmart me by asking idiotic questions. That totally shows how smart you are. Any clown, I could easily program ChatGPT to spam questions nonstop.
And I want to point out that
I
it
would just
actually
instruct it, play a skeptic. No matter how much evidence someone provides, just keep asking them for evidence, more evidence. Say their evidence isn't good, and it will do it.
Yep.
It doesn't require the slightest bit of thought.
And I want to point out that the Quran's own format, the fact that it's disjointed, incoherent when you look at the whole thing, that it doesn't give Muhammad's life, it doesn't give clear instructions about how to be a Muslim, it has all of these failures, that this all indicates that it actually came to be in the context in which it is believed to have come to be, that it was a guy standing in front of people saying nonsense. If it weren't, if it were carefully put together by these wise people later on, if it were coherent composition that was all done at once, it wouldn't have any of the issues and flaws and ridiculousness that it does. Angelica Newirth is big on sucking up to Muslims, but from any sensible point of view, this does show that this was made up as he went along. There can be no other source for this text. It's oral over and over and over again. It's been shown that all the sources are oral, and it is made up as he goes along, and he fails to answer things. He has to go back and address other things. It is made through give and take. And Angelica says that this is a strength. Why does she say it's a strength? Because it was a strength for Muhammad, because he could go and download new answers from Allah.
It is a strength from in her defense. It is a strength from a human perspective, right? It contradicts Islamic doctrine, but being able to adapt the text according to needs is a strategic advantage from a human perspective.
If in the time of Muhammad, it was a massive advantage for Muhammad to be able to say, well, Allah says this now. Allah changes his mind about that. Allah is telling you this now. To be able to download new messages, that's why you have the Doctrines and Covenants of Joseph Smith. It's the same thing. Joseph Smith finished his forgery, the Book of Mormon, but he needed more words from Allah, and so he has the Doctrines and Covenants, which are exactly what the Quran itself is, minus the supposed ancient bits. The supposed ancient bits are Book of Mormon, that's his ancient bits, and then all the stuff that he needs to download immediately and change and contradict himself on, that's Doctrines and Covenants.
Cargo Crew said something accurate. I want to give him credit for saying something accurate. He says, I don't know nothing. Indeed, you don't. And yet you're 100% confident in your position to the point where you adopt it as a game. What does that say about you? I want you to do some serious reflection. You don't know nothing about Christian history. I think in this context, it's about Christian history. Like, you technically think you know something about Islamic history, but you don't know nothing yet. You come in here and say James Vallon is super duper smart. He's got 20 IQ points over Mary. I don't know if there's a person on the planet who has 20 IQ points over Mary, but that's neither here nor there. How would you know? You don't know anything. You haven't the slightest clue whether his arguments are credible or not, and thus you can't defend them. You just want to play games, and it's pathetic. Why are you like this? You're basically saying I am a troll. I'm just here to laugh at you. I don't care about truth. Is that really how you want to be labeled? Because that's what I hear. I'm sorry. This time I actually am. But it's the truth. You are completely and totally uninterested in thinking. You just want to play a game. You have no care of whether something's true or not. You just want to put forward some cool sounding argument and have some fun. It could be arguing that the president is a space alien. It could be arguing the Earth's flat. It could be arguing for Muhammad mythism, which you say is not, which is an offensive term. It doesn't make any difference to you. You just want to come in here and make a stupid argument to get under everyone's nerves and have some fun. That's what you are. And if that's not what you think about yourself, then I suggest you do some self-reflection. Robert Knight says Mohammed Hijab lost court appeal. Yeah, I saw that yesterday.
Fantastic.
Great news. Great news. He's learning that the court is not his demi. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I thought it was really funny that he wanted to bring up one more Muhammad from this Georgian source. I do not believe that anyone has documented how it is spelled in the original Georgian. And in fact, Mel cannot produce the original Georgian. He's like modern Georgian orthography. Well, that would mean spelling, which would mean that the Muhammad is written the normal way. If it's modern orthography, they would have corrected the Muhammad. So that makes no sense whatsoever. So I think it's just more AI slop. But I thought it was really funny because it gives the very conventional history of Muhammad, mentions Abu Bakr, mentions Umar, just absolutely obliterates any possibility of this being a reference to Jesus. But Mel didn't look it up. He didn't check. He didn't look. He did no research. He just copy-pasted AI as Mel does. He has no sincerity. He is not a researcher. He is not a historian. He is the lowest tier
Mary,
of conspiracist.
Actually.
Yeah.
I think that Mel was a researcher until he realized how much easier it is just to make crap up, and that no one cares one way or another. Basically, he found a few things that were interesting after he found everything there was to actually found. Got some endorphins from people praising him for his great research, which was legitimate research. Now, his conclusions weren't legitimate, but it was at least legitimate research. He couldn't find anything else. Discovered that AI will find stuff for him, and wanted to continue that feedback loop with the positive endorphins. And that's why he announced he's quitting, is because that positive endorphin feedback loop ended when people started criticizing him. And it destroyed his real motive, right? His real thoughts here is everyone's praising me and telling me how smart I am. This is wonderful. I'm not saying that was consciously his choice, but that is what was happening. He was in his own little bubble.
Yeah,
right?
the issue was even before. Just to be clear, before
he was sloppy before.
He was terrible at it, and he couldn't he would discover something that was in the same book that apparently he hadn't read all the way through years ago.
Well, I mean, that literally happened
weird.
Right after the debate. He discovered some stuff in a source that he had been referencing for years. And it was I forget which one it was, but it was one of those, accounts of Muhammad. It's a couple pages, right? It's a couple pages. The relevant section of it, obviously the complete work is a history and it's very long, but the relevant section is a couple pages. And after Mary called it out, he reread it and discovered new stuff about it. It did a whole video on it, even though he's supposedly been relying on this source for years. All right. And I pulled this up earlier, but I didn't properly address it earlier. So this will probably be the last comment. I want to realign this entire historical method, which is hijacked by vested interests. What are those vested interests, Cargo Crew? You think that the entirety of the field of history has been hijacked by Islamic apologists, even though the historical methods were invented before there was substantial contact between Islam and the areas these methods were being developed, places like Great Britain, Germany, America. You're breaking up, Mary. So if you want to realign the entire historical method, then you need to address it from a historian's perspective, not a case study, right? The historical method, the reason historians believe in the historical method, it has nothing to do with Muhammad or any other specific example. They have made decisions on about how to do history based on meta reasoning. So you need to attack the meta reasoning behind the historical method if that's actually what you want to do. But guess what, Margaret? Mary has turned into a robot. Perfect.
Oh, am I cracking up really bad?
Oh, you just right. Everything before "Am I cracking up really bad" was incomprehensible.
Oh no! How about now? Am I okay?
Yeah, you're good. Now you're perfectly clear. You sound
Okay,
exactly
so
like
I
a
think
robot. I was gonna say it was the perfect end to the AI stream.
nice. Anyway, I think one of his problems is that he's from India, and India has almost no written history until surprisingly recently. And so he doesn't understand that there are other parts of the world that actually have history. His religion has no credible history behind it. It has oral legends and stories and things, but at the time that it is believed to have possibly been created, there's nothing written. They had not invented writing, they hadn't borrowed writing, and they weren't terribly interested in it. So that's the fact that his tradition has zero history. He wants to steal away the history that other more reputable groups have. I really think that that's going to be at the heart of things.
As Tyler here says, history is not a game. Get the facts right or don't claim anything. Yeah, if you're going to make a claim, right, you can't just sit there and ask questions. Anyone can do that. And as I've said so many times to you, Cargo, you can invalidate absolutely anything. You can invalidate your own mother using this methodology. And when I said, I don't remember if I said mother or grandmother, but I said something like that before. You're like, my grandmother isn't the topic. Why are you changing the topic? Yeah, I don't really care who your grandmother is. I'm not trying to invalidate her. That is not the point. The point is, if you just sit there and you ask questions and you don't accept any response to any question, you can do this infinitely. You can be the little internet troll who has fun by asking people questions and eventually getting them upset at how you will not accept any answers. And he says he's cool with his religion having no history, no validity. And that's consistent with what he said in the past when I raised this. He said, it doesn't matter. It could be all made up today. It could have been all made up yesterday and it would still be equally as valid. Well, I guess that's actually true because it has zero validity.
Except it's not, by the way. The basic presumptions of Jainism have absolutely no evidence in the world that they exist. There's no, like, what should happen once you have come to the Jain true realization of what the world is? You don't have any power over anything. There's no, you ought to be able to escape, but you can't. You're still subject to the same things everybody else is. And that's true for all of the dharmic faiths. And it's just a pale shadow of Hinduism anyway. It's just another branch of Hinduism, and Hinduism is just a branch of Indo-European faith, which is also untrue. So very silly.
Indirectly, great suggestion here by Little Christian Friends. To be fair, by his Cargo's methodology, you could describe my cats aren't. Cargo, I actually have a good suggestion for you. I want you to watch the very true, very real documentary, Birds Aren't Real. And let me know next time if you've come to know the truth that birds are not real. Or if you finally realized how idiotic your methodology is. And that's all I'm going to say on that. Some people will know what I'm talking about. Other people will not know what I'm talking about. Watch the documentary, Birds Aren't Real, Cargo. It is a perfect example of your argument. All right. Final thoughts, Mary?
Mel is so completely disreputable. He has not an ounce of integrity when it comes to doing his research. He doesn't check sources. He puts out AI garbage, hallucinations, and then whines that people criticize him. As he's putting out AI garbage and hallucinations, he whines that he's criticized. But I think that they're still good. Then when other people call him out and like, what's this AI? Oh, it's just a summation. No, it's not, Mel. These people, the only one who even had the same kind of idea in their work that Mel would agree with would be Arthur Jeffrey, had roughly that idea that of the borrowed words, of which he did not think that Muhammad was one, most of them are from Syriac because they totally have Christian backgrounds because I don't know why. But, you know, we've come a long way since 1938 in understanding the language of the era, and it's just sad. It's just sad, and it doesn't support his point. And he's very his you argument is hilarious, and he lied. He consciously lied about Kerr claiming that it will have a U if it's modern. Kerr never said that. He never said that. That is false. But anyway, I will catch you guys later. Hopefully, Mel will just stop fabricating things.
Yep.
Quit it.
My final
Stop.
thoughts.
Mel needs to quit because he has no integrity.
Whatever shred of credibility Mel had, he blew it with this video. Right? He admitted, to his credit, right? This is not an insult. To his credit, he admitted his mistake of relying on AI generation. At that time, I was willing to grant. Now, it would say something about his character, but I was willing to grant that it was actually a mistake. He actually didn't realize that AI can make things up. He can that is no longer a possibility. He said, I'm so sorry, it won't happen again. And then he goes and puts out a video which is almost entirely AI hallucination. He has zero credibility whatsoever. And this is Jay's greatest researcher. Guys, the no-mo nonsense is embarrassing. It is stupid. It lacks any semblance of credibility. If you want to speak against Islam, if you want to actually make a difference, make credible arguments against Islam. It's not that hard. You don't even have to insult Muhammad, right? If you don't want to offend Muslims, use the Islamic dilemma. Use other internal contradictions in the Quran. Use historical errors of the Quran. You do not have to attack the person of Muhammad if you don't want to. Now, from experience, attacking the person of Muhammad is the most effective method, which is why it is my primary methodology. However, not everyone is comfortable doing that. I respect that. I have no problem with any Christian who speaks against Islam in truth, no matter how much they criticize others for speaking against Muhammad, right? Or something along those lines. What I have a problem with is someone who would spread malicious lies in the name of Christianity. And then on Mel's case, additionally go posting about how he is essentially Jesus and we are essentially the demons who are attacking him. It is utter, ridiculous, blasphemous nonsense, Mel's behavior. I will not stand for it. There is zero possibility of me agreeing to disagree with evil done in the name of Christianity. That is my position. I do not care how many people want to unsubscribe, dislike this video, attack me personally, make malicious videos, edit it out of context to make Mary or myself look bad. Video response to that coming soon for those who've seen it and know what I'm talking about. I do not care. I will not be intimidated. I will not back down. And the more you put out lies in your attacks against me, the more I understand how important it is to destroy you. You are not going to win through malice. Give it up. Either repent and address the subject dishonestly, or disappear. Get off the public scene. Stop embarrassing the faith you supposedly believe in with your garbage, with your lies, with your ego. You are not Christ. No one watching this is Christ. Everyone watching this is a disgusting sinner in need of God's salvation. Every one of us is capable of making mistakes. Every one of us is capable of sin. Every one of us sins constantly. Stop looking at yourself and saying, oh, they have specks in their eye, or I mean, they have logs in their eyes, so I will remove the tiny speck. I will remove the tiny speck from my own eye because I'm 99.999% perfect, and they just don't see it. Don't be Mel. Don't be Jay. Be honest. Criticize Islam. Criticize the history of Islam. If you just go about it honestly and say there are questions that Muslims can't answer about their own history, great. I support you 100%. But don't make up lies, and don't try to put Muhammad in our Bible. Muhammad does not belong in our Bible. Jesus is not Muhammad. Muhammad is not Jesus. You could not say something more offensive than saying this prophet of Satan, this evil, demonic man is Jesus Christ. Stop it. That's my final word for the day. Thank you for watching, everyone. I'll have a unrelated scripted video out shortly on a court case in Sweden in which a rapist got a light sentence because he was quick. I found on David Wood's suggestion, I found a great way to make it related to Islam, but really the reason I'm covering it is because of the disgusting, ridiculous law of Sweden that allowed for this and what it means for, my broader stance on the value of women and the disgustingness of men who would abuse women and so on and so forth. I also have a scripted video, hopefully late in the week, on the disingenuous attempt to make Mary look bad, again using AI, shocking, by someone who isn't Mel. And on Friday, we will have a preview of the amazing month of November over on El Iso Elohim. November is Islamophobia Awareness Month, apparently. So we are going to make everyone aware of why they should be scared of Islam, so to speak. Obviously, a bit tongue-in-cheek here. Obviously, Islam doesn't have any reason for a legitimate Christian, a person who has been saved by Christ, to cause them any fear, because we should not fear the one who can kill our body. But of course, Islam is a evil force in the world. It does wreak havoc. It does instill fear. Of course, Muhammad bragged about Islam instilling fear. So we can, I say, let's go for it. Let's talk about Islamophobia in the month of November. David will be involved in that. I believe that Jai and Daughter of Christ will be involved in that. Of course, Mary and I will be involved in it. Elle and Eric will be involved in that. We'll have a nice month-long celebration of Islamophobia starting on Friday.
It'll be fun. I have a topic that I've been wanting to talk about for a really long time, but I was kind of going to talk about it in chronological order, but now's a great time to do it. It's hilarious.
So lots of stuff coming up. I'll have some videos related to that Islamophobia topic. Obviously, Mary alluded to one. I got some other things in my mind too, but I also want to do stuff related to Muhammad Hijab and the development in his sexual abuse case. Lots and lots coming up. After not doing much the last month, I'm now like super busy. I got like 5 projects going on simultaneously. And this wasn't supposed to be one of them. Mel forced my hand, and the other video is forcing my hand. I didn't want to talk about mom and mythism right now. I have too many other things to talk about. But if you're going to attack me, I'm going to respond. You're not going to get away with it.
Yeah, you guys come after me. I don't care who I take down if you're promoting something that is this illegitimate. You cannot make Christians look like morons like this, which is what you are doing. You're making Christians look stupid, dishonest. I mean, how dishonest is Mel just putting up AI hallucinations and telling people that this shows something? How dishonest is this? Phenomenally, unspeakably. It shows that he doesn't have a shred of integrity after being caught before with this. So he knows it happens. He cannot be bothered to look it up. So just pathetic.
Absolutely. And my stream stream deck stopped working midway through the stream. I got a pop-up error message about like resource conflict, blah blah blah. I will get that sorted out. I was trying to manually pull up Jake here. There it is. All right, we'll close out in the usual fashion despite the technical difficulties with Pastor Jake.
Pray this ceaselessly. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me. Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me.